Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to Audiobook Dynasty. If you want early access and even more parts for free, make sure to join me on Patreon. Chapter 1, Start. Chapter length, 1820 words. Unknown MC POV. Somewhere on sea, East Blue. Monkey D. Luffy woke up abruptly, his eyelids revealing a dark and confined environment. A strange sensation enveloped his body, pressed against the wooden walls of the barrel, while the rhythmic movements of the sea produced a gentle sway in the structure. Cautiously, he rubbed his eyes as if trying to dispel the fog of sleep and comprehend the reality around him, with blurry images in his head. The barrel, though confined, had become a peculiar capsule that held the first moments of his memory comeback. The darkness that surrounded him was a veil of uncertainty, but as his senses adjusted, Luffy began to discern familiar details. The worn wood under his fingers, the muffled echoes of the ocean around, and the continuous motion of the waves all indicated that he was in a place that, though initially unknown, carried an iconic atmosphere. This awakening inside the barrel, once mysterious, became the introduction to the rebirth of a new Monkey D. Luffy in a revamped world. His now perceptive eyes explored the confined space, capturing details that identified it as a unique starting point and reflecting on his situation. At every moment, Luffy's awareness gained clarity about his unique situation. Where the hell am I? I remember dying, he murmured to himself, scratching his head in the darkness. It felt like a dream, but as time passed, he became more aware of his situation. Luffy didn't have much time to think because soon a flood of memories began to surface inside his head, between a past life and a new life that he had lived in this world before this moment. I'll be more powerful, and I'll never be caught. I will be more powerful. I will be. No, it will be me. I. You kids are so funny, da ha 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 ha. An adult man wearing a straw hat laughed, watching the two children with an amused look. Luffy, you are too childish, someone commented, expressing a mix of concern and understanding. She's right, Luffy, another added, agreeing with the previous assessment. You girls don't understand. I'll be a great pirate and will rule all the seas. Luffy asserted, excited and full of confidence. Tisk, I don't like that dream, Luffy. I want a world where people live happily, Yuta expressed discontent. It's a beautiful dream, Yuta. I want to bring justice to the world. Yuta, I have a bad feeling about this journey, Luffy commented, a wrinkle of concern marking his forehead. I'll be fine, silly. Remember our promise. Yuta replied, displaying a reassuring smile. That we would stay together? But that was weird, I still don't understand. You'll find out in the future. Foo 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 foo. Yuta laughed mysteriously, leaving a suspenseful aura in the air. I hate you, Shanks. Luffy shouted and ran out with tears in his eyes. Shanks, why? The boy cried on the man's chest. I couldn't let a boy die, could I? Shanks replied, his voice conveying compassion. But, your arm. The boy tried to avoid looking where Shanks had lost his arm to save him. Even though he was a good swimmer, he couldn't go back to the village with that sea monster, but Shanks still saved him. I swear, this is my dream. One day, I'll have a crew that will be the most powerful ever in this world. I will be the strongest pirate and man of all. No one will stop me, whether it's you or Lucy. The boy shouted with his childish voice but seemed quite sincere. Da ha 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 ha. I liked hearing that, Luffy. Let's make a promise then. Shanks said, taking off his hat and putting it on a confused Luffy. You see, this hat is very precious to me. I want you to wear it until the day you become a great pirate, and you have to protect your sister too, she is very special. Shanks said with a casual tone, but no one could imagine the weight behind those words. This, your hat, Shanks. Luffy and Lucy looked at the man in surprise. Yes, now it's yours, and it looks great on you. So, promise me. Shanks smiled. I promise. I will become a great pirate, recognized as the great emperor of the sea. I will protect my sister and one day pass your hat on. Luffy shouted with excitement. I'll be waiting. Shanks left after that, leaving behind a promise that would echo through time. Ha 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 ha. This is the fist of love, you will always feel your grandpa's love. This is to remove any influence that damn redhead has put on you. Garp said seriously. You spat on my sister, you bastard. Luffy saw that and ran to hit the boy. I see you've already met, this is Ace, Luffy, and Lucy, and you are siblings from now on. Garp crossed his arms. Luffy was already defeated on the ground since he couldn't beat a boy 3 years older than him. Brother. What? With this, we'll be officially siblings from this moment on. Yes. Ha ha ha. Cool. Let's drink. Shishi, I have more siblings. In a moment of euphoria and shared dreams. I will be the emperor of all seas. Luffy shouted, his voice full of determination echoing on the beach. I will be a powerful marine, and I will capture you, Luffy. Lucy exclaimed, looking at the horizon with eyes full of determination and pride. I want to make my own name in the world. Ace proclaimed, raising his fist towards the sky, challenging destiny. Freedom at sea and fighting against oppression. That's what I want. Sabo declared, his gaze fixed on the ocean, as if he could see a future free and full of adventures. Ace was crying in a corner. Luffy let the tears flow silently. Luffy, he's really gone. Lucy sobbed along with her brother, incessant tears marking the trail of their sadness. Yes, Lucy. Sabo, died, Luffy said in tears too, his voice wavering with the pain of loss. Lucy cried viscerally, as if each tear were an echo of the pain her heart carried. I'm so sorry, sister, I'm so sorry, Luffy wrapped Lucy in his arms, letting her cry on his shoulder, while his own tears mixed with hers. It was a shared lament between siblings who had lost someone they loved. Ace, good luck. You can do it, Ace. Master it before I arrive, because I plan to give you a beating. You can wait, Luffy, you'll never surpass me. I will capture you and bring justice. Good luck trying that, Lucy. Goodbye, brother. Goodbye, Ace. See you in the future, siblings. Lucy, we'll see each other soon, right? Yes, brother. I'll leave earlier, but we'll meet in the sea. Good luck, Lucy. Me too, brother. Lucy had strange eyes for Luffy. Luffy remained silent, not knowing how to react to that. About that, Lucy commented. Let's keep that just between us, Lucy, we'll talk about it in the future, for now, follow your dreams. Luffy commented. Yes, brother, and you follow yours, I want to see you soon. She said excitedly. Goodbye, everyone. Good luck, Luffy. Don't embarrass the village. Good luck. Follow your dreams, kid. We have faith in you. Goodbye, all, soon you'll be seeing my picture in the newspaper. Many images, people and situations passed through Luffy's mind at this moment, there were scenes of him in another world too, conflicting at this moment, even creating an existential crisis at this moment. This is my life in this world. He exclaimed, feeling a slight headache with all those images arising between two lives at once. Luffy realized that something had changed in himself too. His body was growing and becoming different, stronger and more vibrant. The familiar features of his old self were replaced by a more robust, almost legendary version. He felt a pulsating energy within him, a promise of power and possibilities. That's different, Luffy reflected, acknowledging the changes in himself. I'm no longer the same Monkey D. Luffy. I am something more. Memories from my past life are coming back, and new powers are emerging in this body. As he absorbed the situation, the memory of a robotic voice echoed in his mind, reminding him of his mythical and unique post-death encounter with an identity. He gained a chance to be reborn in the fantastic world of One Piece as a character named Monkey D. Luffy. So, but I'm an original character, huh? Luffy pondered, looking at his hands in that darkness. That explains the changes. He remembered the stories he knew about the One Piece universe. The lines of destiny were redrawn with his presence in this world. According to that identity, there were changes, and this Luffy is not originally Nika but someone else, and now he had the chance to leave a unique mark in history. Let's think about my benefits now. To start, I received 2 powerful devil fruits, 4 summoning cards as an initial bonus, and a shop system as my safe haven for this world. Now that I have received these powers with my memories, my body is changing, especially the mythical Zoan I acquired. Luffy seemed satisfied inside the barrel. As I am not the original Monkey D. Luffy, there is another character who was born to be the MC of this world. I know him very well with my life in this world so far, and he is not a pirate. Now, with my memories coming back, while I started my journey in the barrel by coincidence, I'm sure this world is about to get even more interesting. Luffy murmured, feeling a renewed excitement with the expectations of his possibilities in this world. The first changes in this non-original Luffy are his size. He is 2.1 meters tall with a strong body, despite never having the Hito Hito no Mi or any other devil fruit. He trained a lot with his brothers. He now has tattoos across his torso, as it was part of his original personality in his past life and was added to his body as memories returned. His hair is a modern style, with a side undercut, akin to David's style from Cyberpunk. With the addition of the mythical Zoan devil fruit, his muscles grew even larger at this moment, making his current clothes tight on him. His eyes turned red as a consequence of the fruit's power, and he had changed quite a bit. If the potential of the Monkey D family was already great, the addition of his current fruit made him explode with possibilities. His body was now far beyond the understanding of ordinary humans. Image of Luffy here. Well, it looks like I can finally start my adventure in this world. Luffy commented, still in the dark but ready to leave that barrel and begin his journey. Monkey D. Luffy's POV. Somewhere in the East Blue Sea. With the spontaneous growth after the powers of the devil fruits in his body, Luffy first received the Moa Moa no Mi, a fruit with tremendous potential. In the original work, it was limited to increasing speed and mass, but its essence is multiplication. Luffy knew its potential was much greater. He could increase speed, mass, weight, defense, recovery, learning, gravity, mind, and sound. There were still other possibilities that Luffy hadn't unlocked yet, but he planned to do so in the future. In his opinion, Luffy concluded that he had the devil fruit with the most potential in the world. Imagine reaching your peak with the ability to increase speed and strength by 100 times? His second fruit is not original to this world but from Final Fantasy XVI, one of the colossal monsters known as Icons. Luffy's icon is the Hell Icon, also known as the second fire icon, Ifrit, used by the protagonist of the game. However, Luffy's Ifrit is modified. Instead of normal colored flames, he possesses chaos flames with amethyst hues that surpass even Akaino's magma heat and can disintegrate matter. The official name of his devil fruit is Icon no Mi, Chaos Ifrit. He still had the cards and the system to figure out, but he decided to handle that later. At the moment, his priority was to get out of this barrel floating in the middle of the sea. Without wasting more time, amid the vastness of the sea where the barrel floated in the solitary horizon, its lid exploded, turning into hundreds of shards in the air above the wooden object. Boom! The punch was so powerful that the lid had no chance. The sound echoed for hundreds of meters with its reverberation. In the barrel, a raised fist could be seen emerging from it, while a tattooed man with clothes that no longer seemed to fit him gradually stood up. This was Monkey D. Luffy, or rather, the new Monkey D. Luffy. The boy looked around, trying to orient himself, but his own sigh was the only response he got, as there was nothing beyond the horizon on all sides, no sign of a nearby ship or island. Seems like I'm quite ahead of when the events start. Still, why should I waste my time in a barrel that isn't even big enough for me now? I might as well wait for some sailors to pick me up, thinking I'm some ordered barrel of drink, he murmured. So, he made a decision, he would search for Alvida's ship on his own. The first thing he did was tear his red tank top shirt since it no longer fit him and then took the straw hat off his head, letting it fall onto his back. Throwing the torn shirt away, he began to focus and understand his power. Closing his red eyes, the new Luffy started to concentrate on his back. Let's test my transformation, he said as he forced his strange power to manifest and enter the first phase of his mythical Zoan. Suddenly, he felt the Zoan fruit's energy flow through his body. First, his hair, which was shaved on the sides and had a messy top, matching his rebellious style, began to grow. This is strange and unexpected, but at the same time, it's amazing, he said with a small smile. When he stopped growing, it was as if he had a big black mane now. His hair was thick, but it hadn't lost its black sheen, turning the man into a different kind of beauty for feminine eyes. However, there was no girl around to admire his transformation at this moment, unfortunately. But his transformation didn't end there. In addition to the hair growth that reached the middle of his back, on each side of his upper back, wings began to emerge. As they grew, the man seemed to shrink in comparison, making him look like a kind of black angel. The man, even at 2.10 meters, seemed dwarfed by the wings that extended over 5 meters from his back to their tips. He. This is so cool. Luffy laughed as he admired his new transformation, releasing a different laugh from the original Luffy as he inspected and flapped his wings. I would really like to summon the first members of my crew right now or see the system, but I can't stand being in this damn barrel for another second, Luffy said and prepared for his first attempt at flight. With that, he flexed his knees inside the barrel, while his new wings moved with the same control as any muscle in his body. He leaned as they prepared to launch him upwards, and then he jumped. Boom! Another explosion occurred as the barrel shattered into thousands of pieces, and a man rocketed into the sky with dark wings moving at high speed, leaving a strong gust of wind behind him. Ah! This is amazing! He exclaimed with all his lung power as he soared upward. Luffy fought against gravity and kept ascending. This is a bit tricky, but I can get used to it in no time. Since it's my first time doing this, I just need to be careful because there's no more barrel for me to return to, he said as he continued to fly toward the sky to reach his first clouds. Meanwhile, some time later. Somewhere else. Come on, steal them all, take everything. A extremely fat woman said. Yes, Captain Alvida. A chorus of voices rose in response to her command, and she smiled with satisfaction. Kobe. She shouted again, and a boy with pink hair immediately appeared in front of her. Yes, Captain Alvida. He saluted immediately. Tell me, Kobe. Who's the most beautiful woman in the East Blue? She asked, and the boy shivered. It's Captain Alvida, she's the most beautiful woman in the sea, he said quickly and fearfully. Very well. Now, do you see all this blood and these bodies? She asked with a malicious smile, and the boy chose poorly with this question. Yes, Captain, he said softly, trying not to look at the dead civilians and soldiers strewn about in this vile raid carried out by Alvida's pirate crew. He was responsible for the clean-up. Great, I want you to clean everything and remove anything valuable from the bodies. She gave the order, and he had no choice but to carry out her demand as he headed towards the unfortunate victims. For the rest of the time, Kobe continued taking some valuables from the pockets of those people. Robbing a corpse was by far the most unpleasant thing he could do here, even with all the abuse from Alvida. He had no choice, otherwise, he could end up among the bodies. Kobe. More bodies. A member of the crew arrived and said, laughing, tossing 2 more corpses near him. Kobe could only lament. His expression didn't escape the captain, who stopped what she was doing and looked amused at the young man. Kuabai. Don't you like doing this job? She asked with a threatening look. It's not that, Miss Alvida. I'm doing it, don't worry. He said in a hurry and fearfully trying to accelerate his work. Then do it without any grimaces. She growled. Yes, Captain. He responded immediately. Now, answer me again, who's the most powerful and beautiful woman on the seas? Captain Alvida. That's right. Lucky you have some sense. She said with a malicious smile. But she was soon interrupted by some men who arrived running. Captain. We have a problem. Said those men, who arrived in a panic from the pirate cruise ship, landing on the commercial ship they were looting, and they ran to Alvida with terrible news. What is it now? An irritated Alvida said, as she was interrupted in her precious narcissistic moment. Our treasures. They've all been stolen from our ship. He didn't finish speaking because Alvida hit him head-on with her club, sending him flying with his wounds bleeding after that sudden impact. Hey, you! Can you repeat what he said? Alvida asked the other man who arrived with his companion. He looked at his former companion and the trail of blood he left behind, trembling and fearing Alvida's wrath falling upon him too, just because of the terrible news. He could die here. Kobe wasn't any different, waiting for Alvida not to take it out on him, too, in case she wasn't satisfied. Oh, our treasure was stolen, Captain. He said, and Alvida lowered her head, silent and immobile for a while. Then she raised her gaze, showing her fury to the poor fellow. What did you say? Wait, Captain. He didn't have a chance as he was thrown like a rag doll. She saw her subordinate fly and shouted to the other men. Listen up, everyone. I want you to search every inch of these ships. Bring me that thief with our treasures in 10 minutes. She roared loudly, and everyone panicked, not only for their treasure but also because their lives were in danger here if Alvida was dissatisfied. And you'd better find that damn thief, otherwise, I'll… She couldn't finish her threat because something unbelievable happened. Boom! An explosion occurred behind Alvida. She quickly turned to see what was happening, thinking it might be an attack from another ship. The sea was empty apart from her own pirate ship and the commercial boat they were plundering. But when she returned her eyes to the small explosion, she realized it was a newcomer who seemed to have fallen from the sky. This situation left everyone stunned for the next few seconds. Oh! I finally made it! A cheerful voice said amidst the dust and debris that had risen on the deck. Can't believe I got lost while I was in the sky. How did something like that happen? In the end, I managed to find the ships when I thought I was going to die because my wings couldn't take it anymore. Still, I almost arrived late. The voice spoke to itself, sounding quite dissatisfied. This guy said senseless things while everyone was bewildered. Maybe I have the legendary talent for getting lost on the way, like that Zoro fellow? That would be terrible for me if that's the case. The strange voice debated with itself, and nobody knew to whom it belonged. It seemed very manly and animated. Whistle, wow, there are quite a few bodies here. You pirates in this world don't mess around, and it seems this world is really dangerous. There must be all kinds of real crimes. It's a bit scary, but I'll have to get used to it since I have big plans here. The voice continued talking to itself while everyone was still listening. No one knew what to say to break the strange atmosphere that had taken over. Oh! Look who's here! The voice got excited as it emerged from the smoke. Everyone was even more bewildered when they saw the man coming out of the smoke. He had dark hair with a pompadour and red eyes. He was taller than anyone in this place, exuding confidence in his posture as he approached Alvida. Image here. He was shirtless, displaying his perfect muscles, and covered in tattoos. He was wearing flip-flops and shorts that seemed quite tight on him now, but he didn't seem to mind it much. He walked towards Alvida without hesitation. Alvida, seeing the incredibly beautiful man who showed most of his athletic body, blushed a bit, something Kobe noticed beside her, his eyes and mouth wide open in a huge grimace. Is this really happening? He screamed internally. It was right to be sure that I would meet you on this wonderful day. So it's you. The woman named Alvida, who claims to be the most beautiful woman in this sea, isn't it? he said with a big smile, without caring that he was surrounded by 50 pirates and many civilian bodies on the ground. Monkey D. Luffy's POV. Aboard a commercial ship, East Blue. I was right to be sure I would meet you on this wonderful day. So it's you. The woman named Alvida, who claims to be the most beautiful woman in this whole sea, isn't it? He said with a big smile, not caring that he was surrounded by 50 pirates and many civilian bodies on the ground. Luffy smiled at her provocatively, making her blush even more. She wondered if she was seeing things or if this handsome man seemed genuinely interested in her. Kobe also noticed Luffy's genuine interest in his captain and stood there stunned, feeling like he wanted to vomit. Kobe wondered if this man had some problem with the opposite sex or was blind, as he seemed to be flirting with a terrible, fat and ugly woman like Alvida. Is this guy blind? He must have some sort of mental issue or something. Kobe exclaimed as he tried to make sense of the situation before him. I am, Captain A. Alvida. Kobe wanted to die after hearing his captain stammering like a love-stricken maiden at this moment. But who are you? She asked for his name, and Luffy smiled at her, looking into her eyes with a certain spark. My name is Monkey D. Luffy, the man who will conquer all the seas in this world. His voice was controlled, but everyone heard it in shock. Silence fell over the place. Suddenly, all the pirates burst into laughter. Ha 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 ha. 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 Did you hear that? He'll conquer all the seas? Who does he think he is? Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. That was funny. What a strange guy. I heard something that brightened my day out here at the end of the world. I agree with you, ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. While all 50 pirates laughed at Luffy's bold words, Kobe was horrified by the statement. Surprisingly, Alvida remained calm in the face of these words, as she stared at the handsome man full of confidence. She was blushing without anyone noticing. Luffy, on the other hand, remained calm despite the mockery and confidently smiled at Alvida. Tell me, my lady, what is your dream? Luffy suddenly asked her, which made her surprised by the question and thoughtful. Me? I haven't thought about it yet. Maybe I want to marry a handsome husband and have a family with many children, she stammered at first but timidly continued with a red face. Her response made everyone stop laughing and look at her strangely, half of them wide-eyed, the other half wondering if she had been replaced by someone else. Kobe was almost vomiting blood at this moment. What's happening here? We were just informed that we were robbed right under our noses, and now Alvida, who moments ago wanted to find the thief and punish anyone for their incompetence, is now talking like a teenage girl in love. Kobe wanted to faint at this moment, it was too much for him to absorb, refusing to accept the reality before his eyes. That's a very noble dream, to live in peace with your family is a very good thing. Luffy had a moment of reflection, looking out to the horizon, and suddenly his eyes returned to Alvida, who was blushing with emotion. My lady, I can say that when I first saw you, I was certain that I had found my soulmate. The man said with a seductive smile, making Alvida, with her 200 kilos, open her eyes in surprise and quickly turn away in embarrassment, unable to believe what she had just heard. Everyone, Kobe, the pirates, and even the prisoners who were tied up by the pirates, fell to the ground at this moment. Just a short while ago, their captain was breaking their bones over stolen treasures, and now she was acting like a girl seeing her first crush, while the man in front of her clearly had some vision or mental problems because every time he spoke, it only fueled this madness. What the hell is going on here? They all exclaimed while wanting to vomit blood. Are you blind? Suddenly, the pink-haired boy, who was vomiting blood, shouted and quickly closed his mouth, realizing he had spoken loud enough for everyone to hear. But to his surprise, this man named Luffy smiled and walked toward a stunned Alvida with his actions and words. A boy like you shouldn't meddle in the love between two people, the man said calmly, once again causing everyone to fall to the ground with dumbfounded expressions. Yes, Kobe-kun, you should mind your own business while your dear boss talks to this wonderful knight. Alvida spoke in a tone she had never used before. She seemed totally in love now. Kobe-kun. Kobe vomited much more blood at the sight of Alvida, who had always treated him worse than a dog on her ship, now acting all sweet in front of this crazy man, who clearly had some vision problems. The man approached Alvida with the woman completely embarrassed and submissive at this moment. He raised his arm and lightly caressed her chin, making Alvida blush like a tomato. Wait, Mr. Luffy, we can't rush things like this, maybe we can get to know each other first, she said timidly. No one said anything, as it was too much for their brains to comprehend and process in all these scenes, they seemed mentally broken. I know, my love, but I must say some things for our future together. Luffy began. Our future together. She exclaimed with a touch of passion. First, you're not the most beautiful woman in these seas. You're quite ugly, actually. he said calmly. This shocked Alvida, who realized she couldn't feel the ground beneath her anymore. The others remained silent, they were already broken and couldn't handle any more surprises. Otherwise, they would all be vomiting blood along with Kobe. Author's note, they're not actually vomiting blood. I know this is a Chinese idiom, but I can't think of a more hardcore term to describe the situation. Luffy continued speaking, while Alvida was almost in tears. But I don't deny that you're my soulmate, and I know you'll become the most beautiful woman in East Blue. I have no doubt about that. He flashed a seductive smile. Alvida was stunned as she looked at him emotionally once again. Really? Do you believe I can be beautiful? Alvida couldn't help but ask, excited after that last shock. I have no doubt about that, my love. That's your true dream, and I believe in you, Luffy said calmly. But you'll have to achieve that dream before we can finally be together, he said. Wait. Are you saying you're leaving, and we can't be together now? She exclaimed alarmingly. Luffy calmly took her hand and said, I know it's difficult, but it's not the time for us to be together yet. But soon we will meet, and you will follow me for the rest of our lives, my beautiful Alvida, I'm sure of that. He spoke seriously, looking into her eyes. Is that true? She couldn't help but ask again, a bit lost. Yes, you will become a beautiful woman soon and will be able to find me at that time. As a demonstration of my confidence in you, Luffy suddenly raised his hand and clenched his fist in front of her. My grandfather taught me the best way to show love to someone. Your name says it all. Alvida heard all this paralyzed as she saw Luffy pull his fist back and prepare to strike her, but before she could say anything, it was already too late. Your name is the Fists of Love. This is my demonstration of the love I feel for you. Luffy said and punched Alvida in the stomach before she could react. What? She only managed to express herself before feeling her world shatter. Moa Moa no Mi, strength, apply 10 times. Luffy unleashed the power of the Moa Moa no Mi. With the strength of his fist increased tenfold, coupled with his monstrous body, this impact exploded Alvida, and everything in the space where she stood was destroyed. Kobe, who was closest, flew off the ship and into the water like a rocket. As for Alvida, no one could see her in the next moment, as the force was so strong that she was in front of Luffy one moment and disappeared in the next, with the entire ground being destroyed. No one could even see the enormous woman flying with such force. What the heck is happening here? A collective scream was heard with their comical faces. I think I might have overdone it a bit, Luffy said as he looked at his fist while opening and closing it. Either way, I know she'll be fine, I just hope I threw her in the same direction as Luffy did in the original and that she can find that slippery fruit. I sighed and looked at everyone, who were now looking at me as if they were seeing a terrible monster. You. What are you waiting for? Your captain just flew in that direction with one of my fists of love, go rescue her now. I growled at them. How can that be called a fist of love? They exclaimed, but then they ran to the other ship to set sail after their captain. Meanwhile, a young boy with pink hair climbed onto the commercial ship after emerging from the sea. He hesitated about whether he should return to the pirate ship or not, seeing that everyone was heading to rescue Alvida. Hey, kid. I'm sure you can help me find the location of Shell City. I asked him, pulling him out of his conflicting thoughts. What? How could I help you? He asked suspiciously. By taking me there, of course. If you want to go back to that pirate ship, it's your problem. I simply said, ignoring the blood vomiting from him shortly after those words. Ignoring the thanks of the other survivors on the commercial ship, as Luffy wanted to get to a beach quickly, he and Kobe took a boat from the ship and headed to the Shell Town, where Zoro should be imprisoned at the moment. In the meantime, Luffy noticed but ignored the small boat with an orange-haired woman heading in the opposite direction with some treasure bags as he was sailing with Kobe. We'll meet again, Nami, Luffy murmured to himself, not looking back at the girl on the other side. Did you say something, Mr. Luffy? Kobe asked a little cautiously. It's nothing, just keep rowing, Luffy said lazily. Thus, a timid pink-haired boy and a man who looked more like a thug set off for Shell's town. Kobe's POV. Somewhere in the sea, East Blue. After obtaining a small boat from the commercial ship, Luffy and Kobe got into it and started rowing, moving away from the ship. While Kobe was relieved to finally see Alvida's ship moving away, forgetting about his existence as the ship's handyman, he was also terrified. In front of him was a man who looked more like a monster than a human, even worse than Alvida. Who says they like someone and shows it by punching them? Kobe had this terrible thought as he continued to row. This man in front of him may have a screw loose in his head for hitting on Alvida like that, but he was still a monster in strength. What kind of human would do that with just one punch? I didn't even see the trajectory of the poor woman. Kobe exclaimed internally, not wanting to provoke this aberration in front of him, who had already given him orders to row towards Shell City, which he did with all the speed he could muster. The man himself was sitting, looking out at the sea, admiring the view without paying much attention to Kobe. You know, it's rude to stare at people like that. His mouth moved as he spoke those words without turning his face away from the horizon. Ah. I'm sorry for that. Kobe quickly apologized as if his life depended on it. He. Relax, buddy, it's not like I'll eat you just for looking at me, will I? He laughed, seeming to enjoy Kobe's fear. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Kobe said the only thing that came to his mind. Tisk, you apologize too much. Annoying, just keep rowing then. He said, and Kobe quickly followed his order. It was a strange moment for Kobe. On one hand, he felt fearful of the idea of this man, who looked like a stylish thug, wanting to kill him at any moment. But the man had been quiet all this time, and while Kobe was rowing in a certain direction after checking the maps, he didn't seem to care much about the pink-haired boy. He continued to enjoy the view of the sea and its breeze. But that didn't last the entire journey. At some point, this man felt bored and spoke after a long silence since the last exchange of words. Tell me something, kid. Where are you from? He suddenly asked, catching Kobe a bit off guard. Me? I am from a small village on a nameless fishing island, Mr. Luffy, the pink-haired boy mumbled. And how did you end up on Alvida's ship, kid? You're clearly not a pirate, he asked while looking directly at Kobe, who shuddered and shrank back from those fierce, red, and dangerous eyes. I am an orphan, so one day I went fishing to feed myself, but I ended up being captured by Alvida and her crew, and since then, I've become her servant, Kobe replied, regretting it after gathering the courage to answer those piercing eyes. I see. I won't say that's unfair to you. Life in this world is more or less like that, the stronger eat the weaker. I just think you should become stronger, otherwise, you'll be at the mercy of others for the rest of your life. He said, and Kobe lowered his head. He had dreams, but he didn't have the courage to voice them, even though this man seemed willing to listen. Once again, silence took over the small boat. Kobe, seeing this, finally mustered the courage to talk to this man on his own initiative. Are you from the East Blue, Mr. Luffy? Kobe couldn't help but ask the strange man, who was even more powerful than Alvida, despite seeming to have some screws loose when it came to Alvida being his soulmate. I am. I was raised by mountain bandits near Goa Kingdom, on Dawn Island. He said with a smile as he recalled some memories of his past in this body. Despite the changes he had undergone, Luffy's memories and bonds with others remained the same. Mountain bandits. Kobe couldn't help but widen his eyes in astonishment. That explained why this man acted the way he did, as Kobe had seen before. That's right. Dotun and the others give me a nostalgic feeling when I remember them, just like Ace and Sabo, Gramps, Makino, and others. They make me have those thoughts, and I'm being influenced by Luffy's memories. Luffy couldn't help but murmur to himself. His initial response shouldn't have mentioned Dotun, but here he was talking about a past he hadn't really lived but had memories of and feelings for. Kobe, hearing this, couldn't quite grasp the meaning of those words, but he felt a melancholic atmosphere. This was something he hadn't expected from a character like this Luffy, who he had just met and who had been ruthless and indifferent so far. Kobe tried to change the subject as the silence extended between them once again. What do you plan to do in Shell Town, Mr. Luffy? He asked curiously, as that was the man's objective. Simple, I'm going to recruit Roronozoro. I heard he's imprisoned by the Marines at the naval base on the island, he declared. This left Kobe quite stunned. What? But you said you're a pirate. The famous bounty hunter won't let you leave alive as soon as he finds you. Kobe began to get hysterical about this. You shouldn't go, Mr. Luffy. You. Ow. While his hysteria continued, Luffy flicked him on the forehead so hard that it was equivalent to a punch. Ow, why did you hit me? Kobe couldn't help but complain. Because you talk too much. And I felt like doing it as you cry like a coward every time you open your mouth. Luffy said straightforwardly. Coward. Kobe couldn't help but mutter as he thought about his life since he went fishing and was caught by Alvida 2 years ago. I think you're right. In the end, I'm just weak, at the mercy of others, Kobe lamented, while Luffy sighed upon seeing this. Kobe, tell me, do you have a dream? Luffy asked. I do. But I'm not sure if I'm worthy of it, he said without much confidence. You're already starting wrong. Luffy said, gaining a curious look from Kobe. Then Luffy continued. You lack faith in your dream, so you'll never achieve it. Luffy said simply with that conclusion. Faith in my dream? Kobe murmured as they were in the middle of the ocean with no ships in sight now. Look, Kobe, if Alvida's dream is to be the most beautiful woman in East Blue, it will come true if she has unwavering faith in it. You might be surprised when you see her next time. Luffy spoke seriously. Just like how I'm the man destined to conquer all the seas. Even if I die pursuing my dream, I won't give up believing in it. Luffy said, putting his straw hat on his head to emphasize the seriousness of his words. Even if I die pursuing my dream. Kobe was captivated by this man's words, even though he had been quite intimidating with his bad boy demeanor. Kobe gained a new determination in his eyes. With a clenched fist, he said. You're right, Mr. Luffy. I'll join the Marines. I'll become an admiral and capture all the pirates in the world. Pof ouch. That hurt. Why did you hit me again? Kobe, who was finishing his heartfelt words, felt another flick next to his head. Don't say you'll capture all the pirates while sitting next to a pirate. Luffy tried to instill some sense into the boy in front of him. I guess you're right. Wait, aren't you laughing at my dream? Kobe asked, looking at Luffy's stoic face. Tisk, why would I laugh at someone's dream? Luffy asked, huffing. Remember, Kobe, in this world, people's dreams have no end. Luffy spoke earnestly. People's dreams have no end. Kobe couldn't help but murmur as well. Yes, I like that phrase. Even if it was said by a treacherous bastard, I have to admit that he has principles in his dreams and is willing to do anything to achieve them, after all. Luffy said, thinking about Blackbeard, a man so evil that he wanted to plunge the world into darkness, but Luffy could admire his determination towards his goals and dreams. I think I understand. You're right, Luffy, do you think I can become an admiral? Kobe asked cautiously. Only one person should believe in this dream above all, Kobe, and that's you. The rest of the world doesn't matter as long as you have faith in your dreams. Luffy spoke with the charisma of a leader. Thank you, Kobe couldn't help but express his gratitude. He was ready to chase his dream this time now that he was free from Alvida. He had the chance to join the Marines and fight for the justice he had always yearned for. While Kobe reassessed his determination and rode with more purpose, Luffy thought about opening his system for the first time in this world. He could have flown to Shell City to speed up the journey, but since he got lost the last time he did that, he didn't want to go through the same experience. He decided to let Kobe handle navigation while he planned his next steps. Besides, he wanted this boy to become a powerful marine in the future, the sea would be more interesting that way. So he took advantage of his time while muttering to himself. Moa Moa no Mi, speed, apply 30 times. When he did this, Kobe was startled by the sudden increase in the boat's speed, which they could both feel. What is this? Kobe exclaimed in surprise. Relax, just be careful not to veer off course, and I'll check some things here. Don't bother me for a while. Luffy said, settling in on the other side of the boat while he muttered quietly. Monkey D. Luffy's point of view. Somewhere in the sea, East Blue. Relax, just make sure we don't deviate from the route. Meanwhile, I'll check some things here. Don't bother me for a while, Luffy said as he settled on the other side of the boat, muttering to himself. While the boat sailed through the sea at a speed 30 times faster than before, Luffy decided to take a rest. He opened his system and started examining it. System. Crew, locked. Shop. Inventory cards. It's a rather simple system. There's the crew screen, but it's locked because I don't have anyone under my flag yet. There's a shop where I can buy anything from this world with some conditions. The currency is in berries and gold, but I'll need a lot more for it to be useful. I only have 2 million that I got from the commercial ship, which is practically worthless right now. And lastly, the inventory of cards with 4 cards. This option will disappear once I consume them all. Luffy went through the entire system. He wanted to check the shop, but it would be a waste of time at the moment. He decided to look into it later. Luffy glanced at Kobe after he closed the system screen. Well, talking to this kid is quite boring. Despite his potential, he's so timid right now. I guess I'll take a nap to pass the time. Luffy reasoned and spoke to Kobe. Kobe, Luffy called him, making the boy quickly look at him. Yes. He replied nervously, and Luffy sighed. Keep guiding us to the island. In the meantime, I'll take a short nap. Luffy said to the boy, who was relieved by the brief interaction. Hours passed, and Kobe finally spotted the city with a large naval base at its highest point. Should I wake up Mr. Luffy now or when we reach the port? Kobe mumbled as he looked at the view of the island. No need to, Kobe, ha ha ha. Luffy suddenly appeared behind Kobe, laughing happily after a short nap. He put his straw hat back on his head and looked at the island, lost in thought. Kobe was startled by Luffy's sudden awakening. Mr. Luffy. Kobe couldn't help but be surprised by the abrupt change and was curious about the man's actions, thinking that he might be planning something at this moment. Kobe, I'm going ahead. We'll meet later. Luffy declared. Before Kobe could respond, Luffy's appearance began to change. His hair suddenly started growing, and incredible black wings sprouted from his back, leaving Kobe in shock. What is this? Kobe couldn't help but shout. I'm a devil fruit user, didn't you know? Luffy said with a strange expression. I thought those things were just legends of the seas. Kobe exclaimed but quickly covered his mouth with his hands, fearing that his loud outbursts would anger the man before him. He. Now you see that it's real. If you ever want to defeat me someday, be aware that it won't be easy. Luffy simply declared with a big smile. He then flexed his knees as his wings slowly lifted to gain altitude. Anyway, see you later. Goodbye. Luffy said, and with a burst of strength in front of Kobe, he took off into the sky. The boat swayed, and Kobe almost fell. The boy watched in amazement as the man soared into the sky, leaving him alone in the boat heading for the island. Incredible. He couldn't help but marvel. As he tried to stabilize the boat, he realized that it was losing speed. Am I losing speed? He noticed that the boat no longer had the speed it had before, realizing that it was another ability of Luffy's devil fruit. While Kobe was admiring the sight, Luffy was flying 300 meters above the sea toward the island, increasing his speed. He quickly arrived at the location after a few minutes. He spotted a deserted beach outside the city and headed in that direction to avoid drawing too much attention. Luffy landed gently, his wings kicking up sand. He took his first steps on the island as his wings began to dissipate, and his hair returned to its normal length. It seems like I'm alone here. This should be a good place for what I'm about to do, he said as he looked around the deserted area a little away from the city. I just hope I can convince them, he sighed and then opened the system again, clicking on his summoning cards in the inventory. My first card can bring someone back from the dead, and it can't be someone strong, in fact, it has to be someone weak. Fortunately, there is a person for this, and even though they are weak, I recognize their potential. Summon a resurrection card. Yes/no. Yes. Think of who you want to summon. Understood. Come forth, Kuina. Luffy had always wanted to meet Zoro's old friend, Kuina, who had the same potential as or even more than the swordsman after the time skip. A bright light appeared on the beach, powerful and dazzling. It didn't take long for it to start dimming and, suddenly, a woman stood in the place where the light had been. She had dark blue hair, long and flowing, resembling Tashigi after the time skip, minus the glasses. She had the body of an adult in her early 20s. Observing her, Luffy couldn't help but comment. And to think I can't believe I actually managed to do this, bring someone back from the dead with this card. Luffy exclaimed as he watched the woman regain consciousness, taking in the surroundings and trying to orient herself. Where am I? She said, frightened, finally regaining consciousness after her last experience, which shouldn't have been a pleasant one, as she had died. Luffy could understand why she seemed so agitated in front of him. Seeing the lost woman, he opened the system and spent some of his meager money to buy a cloak from the shop. Who are you? She asked quickly, realizing that she was alone on this strange beach with only this man in front of her. He seemed distracted, gazing off into the distance. First, put this on. Luffy snapped out of his reverie and held out a cloak that had magically appeared in his hand, throwing it over her naked body for the time being. Seeing the cloak thrown over her, she took it out of habit but soon realized how her body was without clothes. What do you think you're doing, you pervert? She shouted, quickly covering her body with the cloak and her face turned red. I just brought you back from the dead, and that's the first thing you say about me. Luffy couldn't help but raise an eyebrow at this clueless woman. She might be beautiful with an adult's body, but he wasn't interested in a girl who should have the mindset of an 11-year-old. So I really was dead? That wasn't a dream. She murmured in shock, forgetting for a moment that she was naked, which was quite understandable, as knowing that she had died and was now alive again should be a shock. Yes, you died 11 years ago. I managed to give you a second chance, Luffy said calmly. He didn't want to beat around the bush and chose to tell her the truth directly. What, 11 years, it can't be, she covered her mouth as tears began to form in her eyes. I know it's hard to grasp, but what matters is that you have a second chance now, Luffy said calmly to her. But how did you bring me back? Is my father still alive? Her first questions came with tears. As for how, I can't say. I can only do this once with the help of a divine artifact, but it broke as soon as I summoned you, I lied, not wanting to explain the function of the card. But I wasn't entirely wrong, as there was only one card that could do something like this, and it had already fulfilled the wish I hoped for. Luffy looked at her and continued to answer her questions. And yes, your father is still here in East Blue, still running that dojo. She fell silent at my words but then looked back at me. Why bring me back here? Why me? I don't think you knew me 11 years ago. Her world was crumbling with this information, so she wanted to know why I used this artifact on her. She actually believed my story, as her death was real, and she was now alive again. I chose you because I know about your history. Don't ask me how, just understand that I know. I'm starting my adventure on the sea and need people with great potential by my side. I believe you have it, just like your friend Zoro. I believe you can reach the pinnacle of swordsmanship in this world, even as a woman, Luffy spoke his mind. Despite her death being a necessary plot point in Zoro's story, Luffy always felt that she deserved something better. He wasn't even sure if she would accept his proposal, but he still wanted to give her a second chance, as she was someone who could match Zoro's potential, and this world would be more interesting with someone like her. She might even be able to defeat his old friend in the future, whether as an enemy or an ally. Do you really believe in me? She couldn't help but ask, forgetting that she had just come back from the dead. Yes, I won't lie. I want you to join me. I'm a pirate, and you would be my first crewmate, I said to her. Pirate? You want me to be a pirate like you? She asked a little scared. Of course, she didn't like the idea of being a pirate, as she had a negative opinion of them. Yes, I am, and I want you with me. But I won't force you if you don't want to. I knew there was a chance this would happen, and I summoned you anyway. I won't force you. I can be a jerk in many ways, but I won't force anyone who doesn't deserve it to join my crew, I said. If you want to live at the dojo and return to your father, I won't stop you, but I think it's a waste of your potential. You can make your father eat his own words that he said once, as you gain a name in this vast sea and see the world. I finished my little speech. I really didn't want to force her. I won't restrict people's freedom like that. There are some plans to force some people, but she's not one of them. I might have summoned her using a precious card, but I'm more like the original Luffy with a desire for freedom at sea. Even if she doesn't accept joining my crew, I hope she doesn't waste her life here in East Blue. I'd like to see her name resonate throughout the world in the future, and she might even give me a good fight in the future, whether she's an enemy or an ally. I don't know. Can I think about it? Can I see my father before deciding anything? She asked a little uncertainly. All right, let's go to your island then. But I have to do some things. You can accompany me before returning to your father? I asked. Yes, I think so. It's the least I could do after you brought me back from the dead, she mumbled, but her eyes viewed me quite favorably now, which wasn't surprising after what I had done and said to her. All right, now I'm going to summon other people, not anyone who's dead this time, so stay in that corner and don't worry, I'll buy you some clothes later, I said, and she watched me for a while as she adjusted the cloak on her body and moved away, wondering what I was going to do next. Summon a card. Yes/no. Yes. Think of who you want to summon. Come forth, Trafalgar D. Law. Monkey D. Luffy's POV. Beach near Shell City, East Blue. Open summoning card. Yes/no. Yes. Think of who you want to summon. Come, Trafalgar Law. A light outshone the sunlight on the beach again, and even Kuina in the distance looked curiously at the light, a little alarmed. Some time later, the light disappeared, and a white bear was in the middle of it with a white t-shirt and shorts, along with a woman with a polka dot hat and a large sword on her shoulder. What is this? The bear shouted, stunned. The woman beside him quickly looked around in alarm and surprise as she raised her hand with her palm facing the ground, ready to use her room at any moment. Kuina on her side was surprised by the sudden summoning, while Luffy looked admirably and a bit confused by this. A bear and a woman dressed like Law. Luffy spoke loud enough and looked puzzled at this because there shouldn't be a woman in front of him. Who are you? I'm sorry. The mink bear was the first to speak, hearing my voice. Luffy just called him a bear, but he apologized. Why? This is Popo, I didn't think he'd be so peculiar, Luffy thought a bit stunned. Who are you? And why are we here? The woman dressed as Law asked angrily, seeing Luffy in the middle of the beach with them. She wanted to attack him at this point, believing he had done something to make them appear here. Wait a moment. Luffy shouted, confused and wanted answers. Where is Trafalgar Law, and why was his sister summoned in his place? I asked, not understanding anything. Who is Trafalgar Law? My name is Trafalgar Lamy, and I have no living brother. My only brother died many years ago. She shouted indignantly, seeming to reach her limit since she was already preparing to launch her attack. Now answer me before I attack you, why are Popo and I here? Who are you? Did you bring us here? Where is this? She asked with the same anger. I understand, if Law is a woman in this world, she must be about 19 years old, so, it seems she swapped places with her brother. She is very beautiful, and she's an emo hottie to boot, using the same style as her brother. Why do women with tattoos make me so attracted? I couldn't help but comment as I looked at the tattooed woman in front of me. She was practically a female version of Law, with the same tattoos and style, making Luffy think that she must have experienced everything Law went through, and she was following the same path as the original would have let her experience. Pervert. Perverted. I'm sorry. The women couldn't help but mock Luffy after hearing his comments, thinking of him as a pervert. Luffy scratched his head at that, but he couldn't help but be stunned when the bear started apologizing. Why are you apologizing? Luffy shouted at the bear in strange clothes without that orange jumpsuit. I'm sorry. He said again. Does he only know how to say that? Luffy lamented, giving himself a facepalm. This world is getting weirder by the minute. I should have known that, too, I couldn't help but think as well. Well, let's get to it. I did summon you, but it seems your companion came along, which is quite strange, but it's okay. The more, the merrier. He said to her, and she looked ready to use her Op no Mi at any moment. And what do you want? Why am I here? This place doesn't seem like the North Blue. She growled. Kuina watched the interaction, intrigued. She had seen how Luffy summoned this tattooed woman like himself, and now she was ready to attack her savior. On one hand, she still owed her life to this man, but on the other hand, she had seen him forcibly bring this woman from another ocean to this place, and she felt that this Lamy had every right to attack Luffy. I know it's hard to understand, but we are in the East Blue, and I summoned you to join my crew. I said simply, getting straight to the point. Huh? Join you? You must be joking, right? She said angrily. Are you saying that when Bappo and I were ready to set out on our journey, a light covered us at the port of our city, it was caused by you, and the next moment, we're here. And now you're telling me that you took me from the North Blue to recruit me right now? She snarled, and before Luffy could explain, she continued. Room. A bluish sphere covered a 20-meter diameter, while Luffy, Lamy, and Bappo were within its range. Looks like she won't listen to me now, I said with some disappointment. So she wants to do this. Luffy thought as he watched what she wanted to do. She drew her blade from its sheath and quickly advanced to strike at his neck, with the intention of removing his head, as Luffy had seen his abilities in the original work. However, Luffy was not as easy to deal with as she imagined. Let's see what you're capable of, you moody and cute girl. Luffy said with a smile to provoke her at this moment. Who are you calling moody and cute? She couldn't help but shout. As she attacked, Luffy activated the power of his fruit. Moa Moa no Mi, defense, apply 30 times. Using and applying the power of the Moa Moa no Mi in this way, he could have dodged, but he wanted to test his limits with a powerful body, adding to it a mythical Zoan fruit and increasing his hardness 30 times. He knew he had gone overboard here, but he wanted to start with the safest position to find out how strong his body was and the limits he could push it to. Her blade quickly reached him, making her smile slyly, but unlike what this woman imagined, when the blade touched his neck, it didn't sink more than the first contact. This made her lose her smile in an instant, and her eyes widened in disbelief. Is this all you can do? Luffy asked, taunting her, while her sword was touching his neck, and he didn't care, just crossing his arms. Impossible. How can't I cut you? What the hell are you? She withdrew the sword, incredulous, backing away a bit, and quickly launched another cut, but his skin rebuffed her weapon without so much as a scratch. She tried again, and again, and again, and again, and nothing happened while Luffy didn't move an inch from where he was with his arms crossed the whole time. He's a monster. Bappo shouted from a distance, watching all of this. He was truly a frightened bear now. That's right. This is impossible. What are you made of? Lamy couldn't help but say, seeing that her blade couldn't cut him or even make a scratch on his skin. Kuina, a little further away, was also stunned, showing a look of disbelief as she watched this scene. She saw how powerful this woman was and knew she could never beat her, but what scared her the most was witnessing her savior taking all those attacks with a smile on his face, not caring to dodge the woman's sword. You may still be weak, but even as a cute, moody girl, you have a lot of potential to grow, I admit. Luffy said, assessing and judging the emo girl in front of him. Who are you calling weak and moody? She shouted indignantly while trying to cut him again. Slash. Slash. Her cuts didn't even tickle him, they were just touches on his skin that he felt through his tactile sense as she tried to cut him, but it wasn't uncomfortable for Luffy. It was like a mosquito trying to bite him. Luffy ignored her attacks and continued speaking. We can do this all day, he said with indifference to irritate her, which worked because he could hear her teeth grinding at that moment. Don't get cocky. She attacked again, but to Luffy's surprise, she saw a part of his straw hat with a cut on his back as she spun around trying to cut him. It was just 3 cuts, but Luffy couldn't help but be stunned by this, his feelings for this hat were strong thanks to the memories of the original Luffy. My hat! He shouted in astonishment. Even though he wasn't the original Luffy, he still had a great affection for this hat that Shanks had given him when he was a child. Oh? I'm sorry if you're angry, Lamy began to taunt, but stopped when she saw the expression on Luffy's face. This made her fall silent instantly because she felt a very unpleasant premonition with it. He no longer had an indifferent look, there was anger towards this woman. No one should damage his hat, no matter who they are. Even as she was about to respond to this, Luffy disappeared within his room. No one, but no one touches that hat and gets away with it, he said, appearing in front of her with the same angry tone before the woman could react. Boom. His punch went straight to her stomach, and she simply flew like a rocket to the other side of the beach. Crack! The sand around her exploded in a 10-meter radius as Lami collided with the ground, cancelling the room they were in, with the result that the woman was defeated with a single blow. Captain! Bappo cried and looked at me like a frightened dog now, thinking he could be my next victim. Kuina was speechless on the side. First, Luffy couldn't be cut by a blade, and she even recognized that Lami's fencing was more powerful than she was used to. Now, she had witnessed his incredible strength and superhuman speed. From that moment on, she was starting to wonder if he was really a human or something else. Bappo, Luffy called the white bear, who was still frozen in fear. Why yes. He stammered and stood up when he heard his name being called by this monster. Take care of Lami, I'll talk to her later when she wakes up. For now, I'll take care of a few more things. I said, and Bappo looked at me for a few seconds, still paralyzed, and finally nodded, running to his captain through a hole created on the beach. He started running towards the hole that his captain had created with the impact of her own body, and Luffy turned to Kuina next to him, who was still stunned, trying to process everything that had happened. Kuina, can you help her? Luffy asked the girl wrapped in a cloak beside him. She nodded, but didn't take her eyes off him, as she began to move to help Bappo take care of the emo woman. I really didn't want things to end like this, I muttered while looking at Bappo searching for his captain in that hole. Luffy was angry about his hat, but even so, he didn't use his strength to harm her permanently. But he doubted that she didn't break some bones with that impact. Not everything would be as easy as I imagined. I hope she has a civilized conversation later when she can hear my proposal and what I have to offer her, I grumbled. Well, I need to fix my hat later since I don't like that cut that girl made. But first, I'll use all my summoning cards first. He said, opening the system again. Open summoning card. Yes/no. Yes. Think of who you want to summon. Come, Yamato. Monkey D. Luffy POV. Beach near Shell City, East Blue. Open summoning card. Yes/no. Yes. Think of who you want to summon. Come, Yamato. A light appeared a few meters away again and dissipated a while later. Luffy was the only one paying attention to them, while the others pulled Lami out of the hole. In the center of it when the light dissipated, there was a 263 centimeters tall woman with a type of mace in her hand, wearing traditional Wano clothes with various colors, but stylish. Her face was better than most women in this world, with snowy white hair mixed with blue finishes, and her red horns stood out with their yellowish base. There was no doubt that this woman was the most beautiful he had ever seen. The first thing the woman did was to look around in confusion, trying to orient herself. Luffy hadn't said anything yet, looking at this beauty and how she was reacting to this summons, while Bappo and Kuina pulled an unconscious Lami out of the hole 100 meters away. The woman who had just appeared first looked at the bear and the blue-haired girl with curiosity from that distance. Once she grasped the bizarre situation, her inquisitive gaze shifted to the man standing in front of her, a few meters away. She realized that he was studying her and knew that her appearance here was for some reason caused by him. She hadn't said anything so far, she was just observing the environment with curiosity, looking at him calmly with an inquisitive expression. Seeing that she was in silence, Luffy decided to break the ice. I recognize you as Kojiki Oden, he told the woman, who immediately widened her eyes upon hearing those words. You know me, she exclaimed, astonished but seemed happy that he recognized her as Oden. Yes, I brought you here, he said calmly. Who are you? Where are we? This doesn't seem like a Nagashima or Wano. She said, quite concerned. You can call me Kojiki Toki, he said simply, crossing his arms again and remaining silent in the next moment before answering her second question, since she'd be absorbing the first piece of information. You're my Toki, she exclaimed in surprise, but there was a blush on her face as she thought about the relationship between Oden and Toki. She might be 24 years old, but she's a virgin, so this is a normal reaction, even though I'm doing this to recruit her, not to sleep with her, Luffy thought to himself. Since she insists on self-identifying as that man all the time, how can I win her over? By self-identifying as Oden's woman. Luffy mused. I am Oden, but I will call you my Yamato from now on, he said to avoid saying my Oden, which would be quite odd. She was at a loss for words. Do you not love your Toki anymore? Luffy asked, pretending to be offended, but his question didn't match his current expression. He looked quite virile to be the woman he was referring to at that moment. But Yamato seemed oblivious to this. No. I am Oden, of course I love my Toki. She shouted immediately, trying to clarify any misunderstanding. After all, in Oden's journal, he loved his Toki, so she couldn't mess that up. Luffy smiled awkwardly at the woman. How easy it is to have this woman as my comrade, he thought. She's one of the best women he's seen in the anime and one of the strongest. Her strength is above that of the three disasters, second only to Kaido, Her own father. But she's a bit eccentric, she self-identifies as Odin after reading his journal for years, so being like Odin is all she wants in life. So he'd be her Toki, making this figurative sacrifice. Listen, Yamato. I'll call you by that name, but you'll always be my Odin, okay? Just call me Luffy from now on, he told her, and she looked at him with curious eyes. Are you sure? She looked at him suspiciously, not easily convinced in the end. After all, she wanted to act as a man. Yes, I'm sure, because you're here with me now, and away from that damn father of yours. Luffy said confidently. Well, now that you know I'm your Odin and you're my Toki, I'll call you Luffy. She finally said after a brief internal conflict. But you didn't tell me where here is. She exclaimed again. Well, now I have a few things to clarify. Listen, Yamato, Luffy said, and she looked at him with determination. First, as you can see, we're not in Wano anymore, not even in the New World. He said, and she looked at him with huge eyes. What? But my collar! She shouted in panic, but she was kind of an idiot, so she didn't even notice that her neck was now free. Look at your neck, I removed all the negative things when I summoned you. You're a free woman now, he clarified. But I'm a man. Even so, I don't believe it yet, but this is incredible. As expected of my Toki. She said various bizarre things but, in the end, she grabbed him with such joy that he couldn't even react to the woman's enthusiasm. She lifted him up and placed him between her breasts, squeezing him tightly and laughing with happiness after many years in captivity in a Nagashima. Ha 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 ha. Thank you. You freed me, my Toki. She was shouting with joy, finally liberated from the shackles of her father after years. Alright, call me my Luffy. And let me go because I still have much more to say, my Yamato. He told her to calm down a bit. She let go of him after a while. Meanwhile, on the other side of the beach, the mink bear and Kuina were checking Trafalgar Lami's injuries, but they couldn't help but look in their direction as Yamato shouted with happiness and excitement. They wondered who this tall woman with a pair of horns was and why she seemed so happy. First, I'll remind you, call me my Luffy. I want our identities to be concealed. You will be my Yamato, and I will be your Luffy, understood? Luffy told the woman in front of him. But I am a man. She protested, playing the female role. As I said, our identities must be concealed, understood? He told her, and she started to think about it. I guess. Then I'll be your Yamato, and you'll be my Luffy, she said, murmuring her dissatisfaction, finally. Another thing, my name is Monkey D. Luffy. I'm Ace's brother too, he said, surprising her even more. What? You're Ace's brother? I remember him talking about you and thinking you're my Toki all this time. She said, even happier. Listen, Yamato, I still have to tell you one more thing. Calm down. He said before she tried to hug him again. I brought you out of Wano and sent you to East Blue. You're no longer bound to your father. Now we can have adventures together. There's no doubt about that, but I also want to invite you to join my crew as my first mate. In that case, you'll be my vice captain, he said. I'm happy, my Luffy, but I'm also worried about Wano. That old bastard could harm the father I have to protect, she muttered. Don't worry, we'll get stronger together. When we reach the Grand Line, we'll not only interfere with your father in Wano but turn the world upside down. What do you say? He said, presenting his true proposal with a big smile. Yes. Let's force that old man out of Wano together. I'll kick him out of there. And we'll turn the world upside down. I can't wait for that. She quickly agreed. She initially wanted to confront her father more than anyone else, so apart from rescuing her from that place, he gave her a good reason to join him now. Not to mention that she wanted to experience her own adventures, just as Odin did in his time. I'm happy for that, my Yamato. Welcome aboard. He said happily, and before he could react, she hugged him again. While Luffy was being suffocated by her breasts, a message appeared in front of him. System, the first crew member has been chosen, the crew screen is now unlocked. Crew, Yamato has joined as a member of your crew. He. This is really interesting. My first crew member is a woman of Yamato's caliber, who must undoubtedly be much more powerful than me at the moment. But she is officially my vice captain, as none of the others I summoned have accepted my proposal yet. Luffy muttered internally but was celebrating while being hugged. After ignoring the system screen, he wanted to make his last summon before continuing his rescue with Zoro. He had the last card, so after thinking a bit about who to summon, he decided who should be a priority right now. My Yamato, can you help that blue-haired woman, Kuina, and the mink bear called Bappo, take care of that other unconscious woman in front of them? They may be possible members of our crew in the future, he asked Yamato after she cancelled her warm hug. I guess so, she said while assessing the situation on that side of the beach. They were currently tending to Lami's injuries. Okay, go there now, while I finish summoning our next crew member. Later, when we reach the Grand Line, I'll tell you more about our plans to free Wano from your father, he said, and she expressed a joyful face, agreeing to it. Yes, I will. She shouted with determination as she walked over to that side with her kanabo, her mace, on her shoulder. Instead of continuing to choose that space for his next summon, Luffy approached the beach's water and continued to walk through the sea's waves. He was affected by the weakness of the sea, but it was not enough to prevent him from returning to the beach. These shorts are too small for me. I need to buy a new pair from the store soon, he muttered as he walked against the small waves. He felt that his clothes were too tight and wanted to change them, but he thought he could do it later. He walked until he reached an appropriate depth to summon the person he had in mind. There were so many people he could summon, but he decided to choose her because she had great untapped potential. Even though she was a crybaby, Luffy would make sure she became a powerful individual. Open summoning card. Yes/no. Yes. Think of who you want to summon. Come, Shirahoshi. Monkey D. Luffy's POV. Beach near Shell City, East Blue. Open summoning card. Yes/no. Yes. Think about who you want to summon. Come, Shirahoshi. The light appeared once again, this time in the middle of the beach's water. Ah! Luffy could hear the startled scream of a frightened young woman. Sharky! Another strange sound came from the light. If Luffy wasn't mistaken, that was the noise Megalo made in the original work. What's happening, Megalo? Why is everything suddenly glowing? Luffy heard the frightened voice of the same young woman in the midst of the light, as she questioned what was happening. Sharky, Sharky, Sharky! Megalo spoke with his strange voice as if the animal was grumbling. The light field wasn't small like the others, it covered a giant area this time. When the light disappeared, a giant mermaid appeared in front of Luffy, her tail thrashing in the water with excitement. She had bubblegum pink hair and wore a seashell bikini. Her sight was matched by another huge shark wearing a red shirt, even bigger than the mermaid. Both of them had a soap bubble float around their waists, allowing them to float and swim with ease. What is this? A mermaid. So big. Luffy heard three startled voices coming from the beach. Kuina, Bappo, and Yamato couldn't help but be surprised by the sudden appearance of Shirahoshi in the middle of the sea. Why am I seeing the sun? Am I breathing surface oxygen? Where am I? She asked with a teary and frightened voice, quickly looking around. Sharky, Sharky, Sharky! Even her shark was agitated and scared. He seemed to be suffering from not being in the water, but Luffy knew from the original work that he could breathe oxygen. Nevertheless, he couldn't help but find his reaction hilarious. Ha 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 ha! Hello, mermaid princess and you, shark, can you breathe? Luffy opened a smile after laughing and greeted the girl excitedly, catching their attention. Sharky! Megalo seemed relieved by the reminder of this strange human and began to breathe the oxygen calmly now. A human? Who are you, Mr. Human? She asked cautiously and quite frightened. Princess Mermaid, I am Monkey D. Luffy, a pirate. Luffy introduced himself with the same smile. A pirate? She became even more frightened, ready to cry and run. I brought you from the Fishman Island, Princess, because I know you need my help. But this is strange, seeing you here, you look older than I imagined. I thought you would be much younger. How old are you? Luffy asked curiously because she shouldn't have this appearance at this time. What do you mean I need your help, Mr. Human? I'm 18 years old, she said cautiously, wondering how Luffy would help her and why he had brought her here. Now he was asking about her age. 18 years old. Well, that's unexpected, as she should be 14 at this time. At least I'm not kidnapping someone underage, Luffy sighed with relief. He found the change strange but also pleasant, as the girl was even more beautiful than he remembered, just as beautiful as Yamato. Luffy-sama, how can you help me? Seeing the human murmuring to himself, she asked again with a curious tone, but still very cautious in her question. She was quite frightened, having been in her room reading some books with Megalo, and then suddenly finding herself here. As much as she wanted to look at this place on the surface, she was still concerned about why she ended up here with this human. Luffy heard the question but had other thoughts on his mind before answering. In addition to the altered age of the mermaid princess, he realized that this world had other differences from the original. He noticed that Lami was a female version of Law, and now Shirahoshi was older than she should be. Could it be that by changing Luffy, the fate of this world has also changed? Since the original Luffy should be the protagonist, there have been changes that will alter reality. For example, this mermaid is older than she should be, so she can be stronger in the future events. With me here, perhaps the world understands that I won't save Fishman Island, so it's like they've been preparing her for it, and it will indeed happen, as I intend to train her for it. Luffy reflected mentally on this. Well, let's get down to it. I summoned you to help because, first, your kingdom is in great danger in the coming years. I said, and she widened her eyes with some realization. The island of the Tritons is in danger. So it's true. She said, worried to the point of almost crying at this information. Even her shark tried to console her beside her. Yes, that's why I brought you here. I'm going to help you save your kingdom, I said, speaking the truth now. Shirahoshi is an ancient weapon, Poseidon, but she was not powerful at all when I saw her in the anime. I want to recruit her and make her so strong that she can protect her country with her own hands. But I'm weak. Shirahoshi said, forgetting the fact that she appeared here out of nowhere as if she had been kidnapped. Yes, you are weak and crybaby, I said without caring about hurting her feelings. I'm weak and a crybaby? Wah-ya. She started crying immediately. Sharky sharky sharky. Megalo started protesting on the side with my words. But I can make you strong and brave. I said with an enthusiastic smile. What did you say? She asked, stopping her tears immediately and looking at me wondering what she heard. Join me, and I'll make you the most powerful princess in the world. You can also fulfill your mother's wish. I intend to help you with that, I said to her. My mother's wish? Can I really do that? She asked incredulously. Yes, I will help you make it come true. I believe you can do it. You can make your people coexist with the surface, that's what I believe. Luffy had a charismatic tone, believing that he could bring this princess under his wing and make her strong enough to achieve her goals. He wasn't interested in this princess as a woman, she had such a young mindset since she had been locked up in her room for years. But he could make her one of the most powerful people in the world on his ship. However, he couldn't deny that she was exceptionally beautiful, as he had seen in Yamato. Do you think I can be as strong as my mother? But I can't even leave my room. She said, lamenting. Look around, princess. You're in the East Blue now. No one will hurt you while I'm here. That Vanderdecken 9 who threatened you can't even send flying objects at you anymore. His fruit's effect was cancelled thanks to this summoning. I said, trying to reassure her. Really? But my dad and my brothers will be worried. She nearly cried at this moment again. Don't worry. As long as you're away from them, you will become strong enough to protect all the people of your island and your family. Don't you want to be strong enough to protect them, both your family and your people? I believe you're the only one who can lead your people to live on the surface. Jimmy I may be a warlord for the government, but he will never be able to achieve this. But in you, I believe. Luffy gave his speech, saying everything he thought and planned and anticipated her response. I want to be strong. I want to do what you're talking about, Luffy-sama, she said, a bit sad, and continued. But she was about to cry at that moment. Luffy interrupted her before she could continue. You are the hope to fulfill what your mother couldn't, Shirahoshi. You are the future ruler of the fishmen, and only you can lead them in this approaching new era, which is full of chaos. Luffy spoke with conviction. But my brothers should take the throne. She quickly protested, not wanting to take her older brother's birthright. No, they are the sons of Neptune, indeed. But besides you, there is no one with the ability to raise the fishmen to a better future. As I said, your people are in great danger. Your brothers must understand that even though they are older, you were born with the birthright to rule not only the fishmen but all marine life. Never forget that, princess, Luffy said with conviction. If not Poseidon, then who? He hadn't seen the final outcome of the original work, but surely Shirahoshi had a significant role in it. He never believed that the original Luffy could fight the world government on his own with his crew, so he had been acquiring powerful allies throughout his journey. And this mermaid was one of them since she possessed a power that could potentially destroy the world. I was born to rule over marine life. She couldn't help but be skeptical of these words. Sharky sharky, Megalo murmured on the side. Yes, I believe it. You will become strong enough to save your family, your people, and elevate your race to the surface, something your mother couldn't achieve, Luffy said. If Luffy-sama says Shirahoshi can be strong and brave, then Shirahoshi believes in Luffy-sama. She finally said after some time of wrestling with herself as she tried to refute. Well, that was too easy, Luffy couldn't help but think that, because the mermaid in front of him should be frightened and ready to run to the sea, not that he didn't appreciate it, but there had to be something else he overlooked. Wait, why do you believe me so easily? Not that I don't like it, but I'm a human who took you from the Fishman Island. You shouldn't be scared. Luffy questioned, he couldn't help but ask. But then he remembered something. Island of the Tritons is in danger. So it's true. Shirahoshi's words resurfaced in his mind. Wait, what did you say before? Did you already know that Fishman Island is in danger? Luffy asked, and he saw a conflicted look on her face. A few years ago, Madame Shirley came to the palace to warn my dad about a vision of the future, she seemed uncertain and continued. In the vision, a human would take me away and help me move and see the real world before I return to my kingdom, when the island needs me the most. I don't know much, but my dad refused to that, and I've had enhanced security for years, and he never let humans enter the palace except for Whitebeard's crew. Shirahoshi said with a softer tone and continued. In the end, I've always waited for this human. I've always wanted to see the surface, but I never expected it to happen like this. So I believe Luffy-sama's words. I believe he's the human in Madame Shirley's vision. Crew, Shirahoshi joined as a crew member. A screen appeared in front of Luffy. My second crew member. He exclaimed inwardly. That's so unexpected, but you can be sure that this vision is real, and I have good intentions for you, Princess, Luffy said, analyzing everything Shirahoshi had said. He was happy that a prophecy from that woman had helped him even before he entered this world. I'm very happy to have you on the crew, Princess. Let's work together in the future, and welcome. He said with a big smile, and she responded with another timid smile, happier than she had been before. First of all, let me adjust your size. I'm sure the news of the Princess Mermaid's disappearance from the palace will be heard soon in many parts of the world. So I need to disguise you a bit, at least in terms of size, to help hide your identity a little. I murmured as I approached her. Shirahoshi. Give me your hand. I said, and she calmly placed her hand in my direction. When her hand was close enough, I put my palm on it and used my power within my capabilities. Moa Moa no Mi, mass, apply 0.1 times. By multiplying by 0 in front or below 1, I can reverse the effects within my capabilities, making my power even more versatile and useful. Shirahoshi, who felt my touch, soon noticed the changes in her body, which was rapidly shrinking. Luffy-sama, what's happening? She cried out in fear. Sharky Sharky Sharky. Even Megalo was frightened, watching his friend's transformation. Shirahoshi was shrinking at that moment, and I didn't say anything until she reached 17 meters, to 1.70 meters, 40 centimeters shorter than me, while the girl was stunned in front of me. I was satisfied with the result. Sorry for this repeating, but I reduced your size to avoid attracting too much attention, I said. You've gotten so big, Luffy-sama. She was immediately startled by this, and Luffy laughed at her reaction. Ha ha ha, of course not. Now let's do the same with Megalo. I said, turning to the shark, who was a bit cautious. Sharky Sharky Sharky. He clearly didn't want it. Sorry, buddy, but you can't stay with us at this size. I said and touched him, making him as small as Shirahoshi. Don't worry, princess. This effect isn't permanent, but it will be good for you to get on our ship, I said, trying to reassure the still frightened princess. I guess so, Luffy-sama, she said a little sadly and continued. Now, come with me. I want to introduce you to the other girls. I said, returning to the beach. As Shirahoshi followed me, she was accompanied by her shark, who floated with a soap bubble around their waists. For the first time, she looked at her surroundings and was fascinated by the new sights in her life. Is this the sun? It's so warm. She said as she followed Luffy to the beach. Is this a forest? It's green. I've never seen one before. Is this sand? Are those birds flying near the sun? Is that a human city? It looks so different from the Fishman Island. Luffy couldn't help but smile at the young woman seeing so many new things in her life for the first time. How's Lami? I asked when I reached the girls and the bear. While Lami was a bit bandaged, Popo had adhesive bandages in his pocket for some bizarre reason. She's fine, Kuina said. But I still think she needs more bandages. Yamato couldn't help but comment in a silly tone. Do you want to turn the captain into a mummy? Everyone looked at Popo, who had an unexpected outburst of anger. I'm sorry. The bear quickly apologized, embarrassed by the attention. What a funny bear. Yamato said with a smile, not caring that he had just yelled at her a moment ago. Kuina sighed, she had never seen such peculiar characters in her life. Even though she remembered meeting Zoro, he wasn't as quirky as Yamato, Popo, and even Luffy. Moreover, she couldn't ignore the fact that Luffy was coming with a mermaid who had been gigantic until recently, followed by a shark wearing a t-shirt that didn't seem to need to breathe water and floated in the air like the mermaid. What happened to her, Luffy-sama? Shirahoshi, seeing the small injured human lying on the sand, couldn't help but ask, worried. She slipped and fell, Luffy said, scratching his head, because how could he say that he had punched the woman for cutting a piece of his hat just a while ago? He was sure she would cry and run away, saying he was a monster. She slipped and fell. Both Popo and Kuina yelled indignantly, knowing the real reason for Lami being in that condition. That's funny. She fell pretty badly to have broken 6 rib bones and dislocated an arm and a leg. Yamato smiled, speaking these words calmly, while Shirahoshi put her hand on her mouth in concern. Kuina, Bappo and even Luffy looked at Yamato strangely because she had believed Luffy's words and said it so strangely. In any case, you stay here for now to take care of Lami, because I want to talk to her when she wakes up. Meanwhile, I'll go get my first swordsman for the crew and the third member. He said as the first swordsman, with a smile, because Kuina hadn't joined yet. But before I go, take this. He handed a set of clothes he had just bought in the systems store to Kuina, who was still wearing only the cloak from before, and a dress for Shirahoji to help her conceal her tail, which was quite conspicuous on its own. Then, in front of a group consisting of a passed-out person, a human, a bear, a mermaid, a shark, and a dragon woman? Luffy wasn't quite sure of Kaido's genetic makeup. Setting aside those thoughts, the group saw Luffy's transformation. His hair started growing again, with huge wings appearing behind him soon after. What is this? My Toki is amazing. Everyone looked strangely at Yamato at that moment, wondering why she called me that and referred to me with a female name, not to mention the strange stars in place of her eyes. Fantastic. I'm sorry. Luffy-sama is amazing. Sharky Sharky. So, without wasting any more time, Luffy took off into the air, lifting some of the beach sand in front of the group, and headed towards Shell City. Monkey D. Luffy's POV. Shell City, East Blue. As Luffy took flight, he looked towards the marine base. I should have had some time to deal with the girls before, but now I'll rescue him. Wait for me, Zoro. I said and used my momentum to increase my flight in that direction. It didn't take long to be above the base at a distance of 1 kilometer. Thanks to my mythical Zoan, I can see every detail from this distance. It's great to have enhanced eyes like all the other animal senses, Luffy said to himself as he looked at the base below, examining all the structures. He glanced in one direction and finally spotted the man tied up in an empty courtyard. Damn it! He heard the green-haired man muttering quietly with his sharp ears. I started to fly and descend towards him. He didn't notice me as I silently landed behind his cross. The sun was in front of him, so he couldn't see the shadow of a giant bird behind him. Turning off my wings silently, I began to approach him from behind. You seem to be in a tight spot, huh? There's even food on the ground, Luffy said casually and noticed the dropped bun on the ground, realizing he arrived a bit later than the original timeline. The green-haired man quickly startled by this sudden voice from behind. Who are you? How did you sneak up behind me without me noticing? He became quite alarmed by Luffy approaching from behind, but the man with the straw hat couldn't blame him for his reaction. How I got here doesn't matter, but let me introduce myself to you. I am Monkey D. Luffy. The man whose dream and goal are to conquer all the seas and shake the very foundations of this world in the process. I said with a big smile. Conquer the seas? Shake the foundations of this world. Zoro said, raising an eyebrow, but he didn't laugh at this declaration, after all, he was another dreamer. That's right, I'm a pirate, I said, looking into his eyes. And I hunt pirates sometimes to get by, so you better leave, he simply said, and Luffy smiled. Hold on there, my friend. Let me finish speaking. I can't be arrogant and think I can do all of this alone. I need a crew to fight against the world and turn it upside down. I can see your ambition too. What's your goal? Luffy asked, knowing already what his next words would be. I made a promise to someone a long time ago that one of us would become the greatest swordsman in the world. I am Roronoa Zoro, the man who will become the greatest swordsman in the world. He said firmly, while I smiled enthusiastically. Very well, my friend. A worthy dream for a swordsman in my pirate crew. I said, and he looked at me strangely. I'm not interested. Knowing what I was insinuating, he cut me off. Sorry, Zoro, I won't force you to join my crew because I don't think you deserve that, and I don't find it very cool with most people. But now you're a criminal, and you'll never survive being hunted by the Marines when you're alone at sea to become the world's greatest swordsman. I said, trying to persuade him. I made a deal with the Marines. If I stay here for a month without eating, they'll set me free. I've been here for a few days, and I can stay much longer like this. Zoro said. And you believe that? I raised an eyebrow with that, knowing his fate. What do you mean? He asked, narrowing his eyes. Look, Captain Morgan's son, Helmeppo, is going to execute you soon to take your sword, the Wado Ikimonji. You're either going to become an outlaw or a dead man. Which option do you choose? Luffy said, crossing his arms in front of him. He looked at him for a few seconds, realizing there was no mistake in his words, and finally spoke. He's really going to do that. His tone showed immense anger. I have no doubt about that, Zoro. Unfortunately, you relied on an arrogant coward, now you'll pay for it, Luffy said. Zoro looked at him for a while before speaking again. Are you serious when you say you want to conquer the seas? He couldn't help but ask that. Yes, I will be known as the king or emperor of the pirates, and I need the greatest swordsman in the world by my side. What do you say? Luffy said confidently. All right. I'll join you, just get my sword back and as long as you don't stop me from pursuing my dream, I'll be your swordsman. He demanded. Well, I can do that, but why would I leave you here defenseless? I asked while opening the system, went to the store, and bought a low-quality sword for him. Where did this sword come from? He was surprised by the sudden appearance of the sword, but I didn't bother to answer as I cut his bindings. This made him fall to the ground in the next moment. Now that he was without ropes, he didn't say anything as he got up and walked over to a piece of land with a dropped bun and picked it up to eat. This is great. I haven't eaten in days. He said happily, eating the bun and the earth. Ha ha ha, that's funny, take this sword, I don't need it. Luffy threw the sword into his hands. What do we do now, Captain? He said, inspecting the sword, but it didn't surprise him, as it was a low-quality sword, but useful at the moment. Crew, Zoro has joined your crew. I smiled at the system message and looked at the swordsman. Simple, we'll get your sword back, take over this marine base, and destroy it in the process. I said enthusiastically as he raised an eyebrow, wondering if I was joking. Come on, let's see what these marines are capable of. Luffy said without waiting for a response from Zoro and walked directly to the front of the marine base, at its entrance. It didn't take long for them to find the entrance courtyard of the base, with Helmeppo being escorted by 2 marines as they seemed to be heading out to do something in the city. He should go to the restaurant where Luffy and Kobe found him in the original story, Luffy thought. Yo! I said, raising my hand to greet them, causing them to turn to my sudden voice and look at me stunned as they studied me bewilderedly. Luffy appeared to them like a criminal, with a rather sinister smile on his face as he approached them. Who are you? Zoro, did you escape? He shouted, and the men beside him quickly grabbed their weapons to attack the 2 approaching them. I raised a hand to Zoro, asking him to let me handle it, and I began to walk toward the trio without any fear of their weapons. As I advanced calmly, 2 rifles were already aimed at me, but I didn't pay much attention as I continued to walk. Shoot him! Helmeppo shouted hysterically. Bang! Bang! The shots were heard by everyone in the vicinity, and the noise echoed through the area. Those who were shooting, along with Helmeppo and even Zoro, had expressions of disbelief as they saw the bullets strike my skin and crumple upon impact without penetrating. The sound of crumpled bullets falling to the ground could be heard by those nearby, in the midst of the ensuing silence that settled over the area. Well, you guys are worse than Lami. At least I could feel a bit of her sword's touch. Luffy said, bored, as the bullets continued to collide with him. Ignoring the fact that Luffy was talking about someone named Lami, they were shocked at this strange figure, which just stood there, stopping bullets from penetrating his own body. Even Zoro couldn't believe his eyes, he never imagined that someone could stop a bullet with their own skin. And he doesn't even know about the monsters in the New World, Luffy told himself as he observed Zoro's surprise. Seeing that they had stopped shooting, Luffy started walking toward the trio again. Stay away, you monster! Helmeppo was now more terrified than ever, taking steps backward, trying to get away from here. Before Helmeppo and his guards could escape, I used my speed to approach. Moa Moa no Mi, speed, apply 30 times. I may not have the gear 2 of the Hito Hito no Mi, but my speed already surpasses it by far at this level. In their view, Luffy disappeared from where he stood, reappearing right in front of them. Without saying anything, I delivered a punch to each guard on either side of Helmeppo. Boom! Boom! Their bodies slammed directly into the marine base wall like rockets. Luffy wasn't a good person, and they had tried to kill him because he was going to spare them as the original Luffy did? Luffy didn't know if they would survive those punches, but he didn't care anymore. He removed his eyes from the holes in the wall made by the marines and looked at the frightened Helmeppo in front of him. He glared at the son of Captain Morgan, one of the worst kinds of people imaginable. Who would they be? The hypocrites of the marines, people who did evil under the guise of justice. These were the kind of people Luffy detested the most in life. So, I heard that you like to intimidate the citizens of this city, Luffy said calmly, looking into his trembling eyes. What do you mean? My father won't let you hurt me. Helmeppo was very scared now, and having Luffy, a stranger, staring at him like a predator didn't help alleviate his tension. Let me show you how to intimidate someone. Luffy said with a sinister smile. What do you mean? My father won't let you hurt me. Helmeppo was very scared now. Hehe, if he shows up, I'll make him join the fun, Luffy talked like a thug, maintaining a wicked grin. Before Helmeppo could respond to this, Luffy grabbed him by the arm. Crack! I simply bent it effortlessly, and his arm made a sound as if bones were breaking. Want to give up already? Luffy said with a small interrogation, looking at the pathetic Helmeppo beneath his hand, now barely able to speak after receiving 2 blows to the face that destroyed him. It's a shame that you can't take it anymore. I could have taught you more, but let's finish this. he said, as he looked at the base and simply launched a badly injured Helmeppo directly into the window on the 5th floor, like a ragdoll. Crack! They could hear the sound of the window breaking from that height. Zoro and the marine guards who had seen this man torturing the son of their captain pointed their guns at him from the walls of the base, but they hesitated to shoot, and no one had yet managed to inform their superior. Luffy's actions had been so sudden that they didn't know how to react. Let's make this more attention-grabbing, Luffy said with a smile, while Zoro looked at him trying to understand what he was planning. Luffy looked at the gate and pointed at it with the palm of his hand. Let's use this ability for the first time. Luffy said with a smile as a powerful purple flame appeared around his hand, appearing to charge with every moment and growing stronger. What's this? Zoro was shocked by this, but not nearly as much as what would happen next. Without responding to Zoro, the flame in Luffy's hand flew and was shot with a small explosion, like a cannon, at high speed, directly towards the gate. The base's gates were still closed, so the flame hit right in the middle. It wasn't just the marine base that heard it, the entire city trembled from the explosion. A group of women with a bear and a shark heard it on a certain beach, and a boy in a boat near the island was also startled as he saw an explosion in front of the base, from where he was several kilometers away at sea. He wondered what on earth was happening there. Monkey D. Luffy POV. Shell City, East Blue. The explosion shook the entire place, window panes shattered with the impact of the blast, and terrified marines ran, dropping their weapons from the wall. Zoro didn't look much different from them. Whistle quite an explosion, hi. Luffy said, pleased. Are you even human, are you sure? Zoro yelled while trying to shield himself from the explosion. Where the marine gate used to be, now looked like hell on earth. There was no more wall, as it had been disintegrated by the impact, and the ground was dug a few meters deep, forming a small crater with purple flames burning on the earth at this moment. In my defense, I had no idea how this power worked. It was the first time using it. Luffy had to come up with an excuse as he scratched his head. He really had no idea he was this powerful. This power may not be as powerful as Kizaru's, but I haven't even used its full potential yet. He thought as he contemplated his potential and considered the future. He turned to a still dazed Zoro and said. Anyway, let's head to the base. The soldiers must be regrouping now. Morgan will show up soon. Luffy said as he walked in the opposite direction of the gate in chaos, which was now on fire. The soldiers on the wall, who were aiming at them, ended up fleeing in fear after witnessing this display of power. With not much more to say, Zoro started following him closely. Who are you? The pair heard a voice as they approached the main building, and at that moment, the main door burst open with a hurried boom, revealing a giant man with an axe in place of his right hand, standing almost 3 meters tall, glaring at them in anger as he appeared before them. Ah! You must be Morgan, the captain of this base, right? Luffy asked, not caring to introduce himself. Several marines were pointing their weapons at the pair behind him, but fear was evident in their eyes. They couldn't remain calm after seeing and feeling what Luffy had done, even if they thought it was due to some bomb he placed on the gate rather than the chaos flames generated in a matter of seconds by the palm of his hand, otherwise, they would be fleeing at this moment. Luffy smiled at them. Yes, I am Morgan. Do you have any idea who you're attacking? No pirate attacks a marine base and gets away with it. He said as a threat. Hehe, I'd like to see that. I'm a pirate, and I do what I want, Luffy said as he walked towards Morgan without hesitation. This only made Morgan even angrier at this young pirate. He then saw Luffy approaching the line of his attack, and as he walked, he raised his axe and swung it. Then die! He shouted and swung his axe with all his might. Luffy, seeing this, had only one thought. Moa Moa no Mi, defense, apply 30 times. Crack! His axe connected with my body but stopped there, not going a millimeter further. It even created cracks in the weapon with the impact of Luffy's body. This is impossible! Morgan shouted, now truly scared. Is that all the great Captain Morgan can do? It's stronger than bullets, I admit, but it's still weaker than Lami's blade, Luffy smiled as he spoke. Shoot him! Kill them! Morgan immediately yelled, trying to retreat from this monster. Moa Moa no Mi, speed, apply 30 times. I disappeared from the spot, reappearing near Morgan's head. Moa Moa no Mi, strength, apply 30 times. I still couldn't use 2 applications at the same time, I would have to further develop my fruit to achieve that. However, I could quickly switch between applications of multiplication. Luffy didn't waste time and punched Morgan's head in that instant, without giving him a chance to react. I switched from speed to multiplied strength to see what would happen. I could defeat him with just my physical strength, but I wanted to test my limits. Boom! The impact of my punch created an explosive sound, causing Morgan's head to detach from his neck in an instant. Boom! Another impact followed, with the severed head exploding and flying into the marine base. The soldiers, seeing their captain lose his head like that, were shocked and immediately dropped their weapons in surrender, knowing they were in front of a monster. Luffy calmly landed on the ground and looked at the impact created by his punch. Whistle. He whistled, looking at the damage he had caused. Do any of you still want to fight? He asked the men in front of him, who had already surrendered by dropping their weapons. No. We surrender, one of them said. Great, we're pirates and we don't care about the marines. I'm going to plunder this base, as long as you don't interfere with it, we won't harm you, he told the man, who looked cautious but yielded to Luffy's relentless gaze, unable to fight back, knowing that Luffy could kill them on the spot. Great, show my companion here to the treasure room, he pointed to Zoro since Luffy decided that Zoro would be assigned to collect the treasure and his old weapon. I also want to go to the main Den Mushi, one that can connect directly to Marine headquarters, I told them, and the man who spoke to Luffy had widened eyes at this. You want to talk to Marine headquarters? The man couldn't help but ask in surprise. Yes, you can do that. Remember, you are now my hostages. Ha 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 ha. He said with a sadistic smile, and the marine in front of him began to sweat. Why yes. The poor man yielded. Zoro, get your swords and take all the money from the vault with you. In the meantime, I'll talk to my old man, I said. Your grandfather? Zoro asked incredulously, but Luffy didn't bother to respond and followed the man who led me to Morgan's room. Here is the Den Mushi. The man said, still sounding nervous. Call the headquarters, please, I said, and the man started dialing the special number hurriedly. Click Mushi Mushi. This is headquarters. What does Marine base stationed in Shell City, Unit 153, need? A demanding voice came from the snail. Yes sir, there's a pirate who wants to speak with you, the poor man was afraid as he spoke hesitantly. What do you mean? The voice became serious, and the snail's expression changed, now that he heard this. Give me that, and thank you. Luffy smiled and said as he took the communicator connected to the snail. Hello, I'm the pirate monkey D. Luffy. I announced with an even bigger smile and spoke before the other end of the line could question me or recite the usual lines about how Luffy couldn't escape punishment and that he would pay for it, the usual lines. I wish to speak with my grandpa, Monkey D. Garp. He should be in Sengoku's office right now, if he's still at Marineford, Luffy said calmly. The room fell silent, both the marine next to Luffy and the one on the other end of the line. They choked when they heard this. Who was Sengoku? The highest level of the marines. But here was a nameless pirate from the East Blue, asking to be transferred to the highest level of the Marines' room. And even more importantly, who was Garp? The hero of the Marines, the strongest man in the Marines' ranks, a symbol of the highest prestige in the organization. Not even the three admirals could compare in strength and reputation. But here was a rookie pirate saying he was his grandson, and how could people take that lightly? Is this, even the voice became nervous now. While the man who had accompanied Luffy to this room was about to faint. Tell him I took this base and its personnel hostage, he'll understand, Luffy said, still smiling. His expression didn't match his actions, as Luffy was taking over a whole marine base, not strolling in the park to smile so easily. All right. The voice said nervously and seemed to put the Den Mushi on hold. A little while later, the snail's expression changed, and a much older voice boomed from the other end. Luffy. What do you think you're doing, you became a pirate? His grandfather's voice was seething with anger. Ha 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 ha. Hello, Grandpa. It's been 6 months since I last saw you, I miss you so much. Luffy laughed and spoke sincerely. He was influenced by the original Luffy, so he felt a genuine connection to this man as a grandfather. In the original, even though he loved this guy, Luffy didn't want to see his grandpa because of his fist of love, but this new Luffy was different, he genuinely wanted to see the man. Ha 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 ha. My grandson misses me. But your voice sounds different, have you grown in these? He laughed happily and did a 180-degree turnaround when he heard that his rebellious grandson missed him. Garp. Sengoku shouted angrily at Garp beside him to get him to focus on the call. Oh, yeah. Luffy, what do you think you're doing, you kidnapped a marine base? He expressed his anger again. He, I wanted to talk to you again, Grandpa, I have some things to tell you, he said. But a voice interrupted me. What happened to Morgan? Sengoku asked hurriedly as he grabbed the communicator next to Garp. Well, I killed him, I said, and the room fell silent at that moment. You did what? Garp shouted in the background. Grandpa, I don't want to offend you or your precious marines, but a commander who abuses his people to the point of hurting his subordinates and the city's citizens, claiming to do so for the sake of marine justice, is the kind of person I hate most in this world. Even pirates have more dignity than this type of person because pirates do evil without hiding behind a noble cause, Luffy said and continued. And he tried to kill me, called me a demon, a monster, but if a person is ready to kill, then they must be ready to die, he said without mincing words. I can understand that, my grandfather spoke, knowing that his grandson wouldn't lie, and he felt no deception at all, as his haki would hardly be wrong, even through a den mushi. GARP. Your grandson killed a base commander, right or wrong, and he tarnished the name of the Marines. Sengoku yelled in anger, and Garp, who had concurred with his grandson on the phone, scratched his nose beside Sengoku. Luffy, stay there, I'm coming to the East Blue to capture you. Garp shouted indignantly. Ha 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 ha. Grandpa, I have more corrupt Marines to catch in this sea, so I won't be here for long. Luffy laughed in amusement at his grandfather's request. This guy was really funny. Grandpa, I want to tell you something else. There's a boy arriving at this base, he's weak and cowardly, but he has potential. He's determined to reach the level of an admiral. I would say he would be the best pupil you could get since I and Ace are pirates. Luffy said with a smile. Curse them, I shouldn't have let you guys choose this lifestyle. Garp shouted in anger but quickly softened his voice. Tell me, is this boy here now? Garp asked, curious. His rebellious grandson's words had piqued his interest. Yes, Grandpa. He's going to enlist as a Marine, it's a good change. I would take him as a crewmate, but he's determined to fight pirates. I said. That's interesting. My grandfather said with a smile. Yes, I want you to train him with everything, as I know you and Sengoku are almost retired. I said with a smile, especially when the snail expressed anger that was nothing compared to before, while the Marine in the room with me fainted from those words. Luffy didn't care about that and continued. So the Marines need new potentials, only you guys aren't any fun when I dominate the new world. I hope for some challenge, you know. I said arrogantly, while my grandfather and the fleet admiral were left speechless by my remarks. Luffy, I'm coming to the East Blue to capture you. My grandpa shouted indignantly. Great, Grandpa, I would love to see you again. He said, with a smile, while the expression of the Den Mushi seemed genuinely happy at this moment. Ha 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 ha. My grandson wants to see me. Garp laughed happily. Garp. Sengoku shouted again in anger. Oh yes, Luffy. Wait for me, and I'll capture you using my fist of love. He said. Grandpa, speaking of which, I learned to use the fist of love. I saw a girl I liked a while back and used those fists on her to show my love, but she flew too far. Luffy complained. Ha 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 ha. So you used the fist of love the right way. While the grandfather-grandson duo chatted, Sengoku and the Marine who had fainted before and had now woken up were speechless with this conversation. How do you win over a woman by punching her? They exclaimed. The same listeners were speechless at the next action of the grandfather-grandson on each of the lines. Sengoku saw Garp fall asleep in front of him, while the Marine from Naval Base 153 was speechless when he saw Luffy and the Den Mushi fall asleep in the middle of the call. Garp. What a strange dream, I dreamt that my grandson missed me, he murmured, but when he saw the communication equipment in front of him, some veins appeared on his forehead. Luffy. How can you sleep in the middle of a call? Grandpa. Stay in the East Blue, Grandpa is coming to arrest you. Garp shouted. Okay, you can come, but bring some of those cookies. I want to try them to see why you only eat those. I plan to try them after I kick your butt, of course. Luffy said with a smile, but before Garp could respond, Luffy hung up the Den Mushi. Click. With that, Luffy left the room, satisfied, while the Marine who had been with him before was unconscious after hearing the entire conversation again. Monkey D. Luffy POV. Shell City, East Blue. Yo Zoro, I see you got the treasures. Luffy couldn't help but smile when he saw Zoro with his swords at his side and a bag of gold behind him as Luffy walked out of the main gate of the base alone. He noticed that his companion was still surrounded by Marines, but none of them seemed to want to do anything against them now, with defeated looks on their faces. I guess so. Zoro grumbled dissatisfied. He ended up not doing anything while Luffy fought and destroyed the Marine base all by himself. He felt a little bad about it since, in the end, he was reduced to being a pack mule by his captain. Ignoring his new crewmate, Luffy turned to the Marines and spoke with enthusiasm, not appearing as if they were mortal enemies, and he offered a friendly smile to their dejected faces. With that, we're leaving. Thanks for everything, Marines. I hope you won't abuse your people anymore, understood? Oh, one more thing, there's a pink-haired boy who will come to enlist soon, my grandfather, who is a vice-admiral, will come to take care of him. So make sure to welcome him until the old man arrives. The Marine who accompanied me to the Den Mushi will answer any of your questions, so goodbye. I said to the Marines in a friendly manner. This guy just destroyed a part of the base, killed our commander, and stole our gold, not to mention that by contacting the headquarters, we've lost our dignity. How can he act like we're friends right now? All the Marines had this thought. How could they feel okay about it? But Luffy didn't care. Luffy then turned towards the direction of the destroyed gate with Zoro behind him. I think things are going to change a bit with these actions, unlike the original. In the original, Luffy cut off all ties with Kobe after Morgan was defeated, but I'm different from the original and wouldn't try to hide the brief moment he had with Kobe. But to make Kobe have the same fate as the original, since that was his dream, he personally made that call to his grandfather and wanted to meet the old man on purpose. With his actions here, Kobe might not fall into the hands of his grandfather, so he directly contacted that man to talk about the boy. Kobe had a lot of potential, and the Marines would never suspect a direct pupil under the care of the Marine hero as a spy, which would be impossible to go unnoticed by my grandfather if that were the case. I say he has a chance to fit in as a spy because the boy had my recommendation and a history of spending a few years on Alvida's ship. Some suspicions could naturally arise. Ignoring the Marines, Luffy turned his attention back to Zoro. Let's go, Zoro. We have to see our other crewmates who are waiting for us, and there's a big surprise among them. I'm sure your eyes will pop out with this. Luffy said with mystery and an encouraging smile. Zoro saw that but didn't ask any more questions. He simply followed them, his face filled with a sense of defeat. Then the pair walked through the destroyed crater that used to be the old gate and saw a large crowd gathered outside at the moment. The explosion had drawn the entire city's attention, and almost everyone had come to see what was happening and the destruction caused at the marine base. What happened here? Why are only these two coming out of there so calmly? That's Roronoa Zoro, the man captured by Morgan's son. Poor guy, he was just defending a little girl. Speaking of which, I don't think Morgan would just let him leave like that. Especially carrying gold. Who's that with him? He's all tattooed. He's so handsome. What a handsome man. Marry me. You have a tendency to attract attention, huh? Zoro, next to Luffy, couldn't help but comment as he saw the women suddenly shouting things to his captain, while the men felt jealous and uncomfortable. Tisk, I already have my women. I can't pay attention to everyone I see. Luffy said, smiling at him. But before he could respond, a little girl emerged from the crowd and came towards the pair. You managed to get free. I'm so happy. She asked cheerfully. I believe so, Zoro said bashfully. Rika. A woman came from the crowd, calling the girl. Mom, he's free. She pointed to Zoro and said again. Let's invite him to the restaurant. I don't think that's a good idea. Luffy intervened this time. Huh? We're being pursued for attacking a marine base and killing Morgan, their commander. So we're leaving. Morgan is dead. The crowd that heard this quickly asked in astonishment. Yes, now let's go, Zoro. Luffy said, leaving the people with this information and walking directly to the city's port. He knew people would be happy to hear this information, but he wanted to get out of this city as soon as possible. It's a race against time on every island Luffy visited in the original, and Nami, Usopp, and Sanji were in some degree of danger if he took too long. Not to mention that his grandfather was likely now preparing to set sail from the headquarters to come to the East Blue, wanting to put him in Impel Down. Ha ha ha. Will I finally have my own bounty? I believe you'll have one too after today. Luffy commented as they walked through the streets. Maybe, it's highly likely given the commotion you caused today. Zoro grumbled. Yeah, but I doubt it'll be very high since we're in the East Blue, and we only attacked one base, Luffy reflected. As people celebrated, Luffy and Zoro made their way to a dock at the port. There was a boat arriving in the city with a solitary Kobe rowing it. Hello, Kobe. You took a long time. Luffy couldn't help but comment suddenly as he approached the boy. Kobe, who was tying the boat to one of the dock pillars absent-mindedly, was startled by Luffy's sudden voice behind him. Ah! Luffy. Zoro. The boy was even more frightened with Zoro by Luffy's side. Zoro, stop scaring the kids. Luffy simply said as he smiled at Kobe. Who's scaring the kids? Zoro was indignant. Ha 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 ha. Look at him, Zoro. He's clearly afraid of you. Luffy made a joke, having fun with the situation. Seeing it that way, he doesn't seem to know what kind of monster you are, Zoro muttered. Ignoring Zoro, Luffy's attention returned to the timid boy in front of him. Kobe, you're going to enlist in this marine base. I've talked to them, and they'll take care of you until my grandfather picks you up, understood? Luffy said. Huh? Seriously? Who's your grandfather? Kobe asked in disbelief. That's a secret. Ha 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 ha. Luffy laughed, imagining Garp throwing poor Kobe onto some random island filled with giant and powerful creatures while the poor boy screamed and cried. Anyway, I'm leaving now, Kobe. Good luck, and I hope you become a powerful figure in the future, as strong as an admiral. I'm counting on it, got it? Luffy said with a smile as he walked away with Zoro right behind him, walking away from the boy after a brief farewell. Kobe was shocked by Luffy's words, wondering if the guy with the straw hat really believed in him. But he didn't notice any insincerity in his tone when he said those words. Seeing Luffy walking away and realizing that he wouldn't see him for a while, Kobe quickly shouted determined and excitedly at Luffy. This guy with the straw hat had helped him and even encouraged him to pursue his dream. Tears streamed down his face, and he shouted as loudly as he could. Thank you, Luffy. Wait for me, and one day I'll go to sea to capture you. So you better be ready for it, Monkey D. Luffy. Kobe said with determination and emotion. I'm counting on it, Kobe. Luffy replied from a distance. You're very strange, you know that. Zoro couldn't help but comment beside him. Ha 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 ha, I like challenges. The sea would be very boring if there were no potential opponents to fight in the future. Easy things are usually easily forgotten. Luffy said as they walked toward one of the city gates. I have to agree with your words, Zoro couldn't help but let his fighting spirit speak for him. Walking along the end of the dock, Luffy finally found what he was looking for, a marine ship docked at one of the piers. There were no marines on board since the explosion in the base had made them run to the scene. Hey, let's steal a marine ship? Won't that give us trouble? Zoro asked suspiciously, having realized what I was about to do. Well, I'm going to steal it, but not in the way you're thinking. And yes, it will cause problems, but I'd rather go on a stolen marine ship than some boat we can find at the dock. Besides, there are a few lovely ladies with us who need space. I said as I put my hand on the ship's wood. The Moa Moa no Mi, mass, apply 0.001 times. The 30-meter ship began to shrink in the next moment. What is this? Zoro exclaimed in amazement. As it shrank, the ship didn't leave my touch until it was only 3 centimeters long, shrinking 100 times. Luffy currently has a limit of 30 times his fruit for many applications, and he can apply 3 digits of 0. He hopes to increase the power limit soon, envisioning the possibilities and versatility of the multiplication fruit. Ha ha ha. Don't be too shocked, this is our corona to get off this island. I promise to return it to the Marines when we have our own boat, I said, showing the tiny ship in the palm of my hand to a bewildered Zoro. Why am I still surprised? You're definitely not human, he retorted, already convinced that Luffy is not normal. Now let's go, we have some people to meet before we set sail, Luffy said, turning and continuing down the path to the east gate and exiting through it. As they walked through the forest, it didn't take long to find the beach where the girls had been after 10 minutes. As they approached, Zoro began to notice the strange group of women. Is that a flying shark? And a mermaid? Zoro couldn't help but be amazed by Shirahoshi, even from a distance and wearing a dress, she was sitting, and her tail was visible on the beach. Come on, there's someone else you'll be even more surprised to meet. Luffy said as they got closer, leaving Zoro even more curious about his captain's words. Luffy-sama. Shirahoshi shouted upon seeing him approach. Hello, I see Lamy is awake. Luffy said as he observed the bandaged woman on the beach, conscious but not at all pleased with her current condition. I didn't know you humans got hurt so badly just from falling, how funny. Shirahoshi said as she lay on the beach, swaying her tail and resting her chin on her hands, observing Trafalgar Lamy being helped by Beppo, as if she were watching an exotic animal. Who said I fell? Lamy exclaimed comically. Ha ha ha, it looks like you're getting along. Luffy said, watching the scene and laughing. You. Where did you get a woman with horns, a mermaid, and a strange flying shark while I was unconscious? And now you bring a swordsman too. Lamy shouted angrily at Luffy as he approached. Sharky Megalo didn't like being called a strange shark. That's a secret, but anyway, about the shark, he uses an air bubble around him. Now, how he breathes outside of the water, I don't know. But more importantly, meet Roronoa Zoro, your new crewmate. I announced, pointing to the green-haired man at my side. Who said I'm your crewmate? Lamy yelled angrily. Really, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm sorry. Zoro-sama. Sharky. Hello, I'm Odin. I mean, Yamato. Zoro was speechless in front of this group of strange women and animals before him. First a mermaid and a shark, then a bandaged woman who apparently hated Luffy above all else here, and now a talking bear who expressed his opinion first and then apologized. Not to mention the woman with white and various colored hair, almost 3 meters tall with a pair of horns on her head, almost identifying as a man named Odin. Hey, what's going on here? Are these our crewmates? Where did you get so many bizarre people? Zoro shouted incredulously with a comical expression, wondering if he had made the right decision to join Luffy as a pirate. Ha ha ha, cool, right? We're going to conquer the seas together. Wait until you meet the money lover and the long nose, Luffy said enthusiastically, thinking about Nami and Usopp. That wasn't a compliment. Zoro retorted. Speaking of which, did you hear the explosion? Was that you, my Toki, my Luffy? Yamato asked curiously with her beautiful eyes. Oh, that was me. Zoro was captured by Marines while he was going to be executed, so I decided to blow up the base gate in a clash with the soldiers, Luffy calmly explained. Luffy-sama is so strong. Shirahoshi couldn't help but be impressed. She had been learning many new things since she appeared here, and she didn't know that humans were so strong, as she was taking Luffy as her benchmark for surface human beings. Incredible. I'm sorry. Bappo exclaimed. Tisk, darn it, Lamy muttered. Hey, after all these years, this guy still gets into trouble like this. A new voice appeared, and I turned to the woman who now had decent clothes, coming toward us from the forest. So you were here, Kuina. Luffy smiled at the woman. Zoro looked incredulously at the woman when he heard that name. Sad memories couldn't help but flash through his mind with the coincidence of that name, but he never imagined that the coincidence was more than just the identical name, it was the friend who had died more than 11 years ago. When he saw her, he couldn't help but wonder if it was some dream or something. She was there, the woman he once thought was dead until seconds ago. Leaving Zoro to review his friend, he took the gold Zoro had brought and tried a test. There were 40 million in the bags, so he wanted to see if he could exchange it for points. System can add money from the shop without being able to return it to your hands, so 40 million berries will be added to the shop's inventory without being able to withdraw that money to the real world again. The message appeared in front of Luffy. Interesting. But it's better to keep some of this money for now because I want to have some purchasing power in the real world, Luffy muttered to himself as he made most of the gold and banknotes disappear from the bags. In total, 30 million berries were credited to the system, while 10 million remained in front of him. Looking at his companions, Zoro had a look of amazement while talking to Kuina. Yamato, Shirahoshi, Megalo, Bappo, and even Lamy looked at me, waiting for something. Sigh well, let's get off this island. I'm glad I took a navy ship, I said, taking a miniature boat from my pocket. He could buy a small ship in the system, but it would be a waste of money right now. Shirahoshi, can I borrow Megalo? He asked her about her shark. I think so. Megalo. She hesitated to part with her friend. Sharky. Megalo seemed cautious. Seeing this, Luffy spoke again. Don't worry, I just need someone to pull the ship, and I need him in his normal form to do it until the next island. He explained his intentions. Sharky sharky sharky. Megalo replied. I guess that's a yes. Anyway, let's go. Luffy opened a smile and took the lead. He walked to the beach, raising his arm back, threw the ship into the sea, catching the curious glances. The Moa Moa no Mi, mass, revert effect in 5 seconds. Tossing the small object into the air, it flew about 50 meters high until it suddenly transformed into a large 30-meter-long ship with the marine flag. Boom! The sound of the ship hitting the water startled most of his companions when they saw the ship appear out of nowhere. I know you have questions, but let's save that for another time. First, let's board the ship. Luffy announced, and everyone quickly walked to the ship on the water, where a ladder was hanging down. What do you think you're doing? Lamy yelled angrily as Luffy went to the beach and picked her up like a princess. What, don't you feel like an emo princess? He asked her with a provocative smile, which would make Luffy take a punch if she weren't bandaged right now. Who are you calling an emo princess? She shouted angrily, but Luffy didn't care. Ignoring her hatred for him, he headed to the marine ship and jumped on board. Everyone boarded the ship shortly thereafter, which didn't take long. As soon as they all got on the ship, Luffy asked Megalo to approach him, where he undid the power of his devil fruit, and he turned back into a 30-meter-long shark. Now, Megalo, take this. As he fell into the water, he grabbed the anchor that Luffy had thrown to him and clamped onto it with his teeth to pull the ship out of the water. Now, go in that direction. He instructed the shark, pointing that way after seeing a marine map. Megalo quickly pulled the ship toward Orange Town. Monkey D. Luffy POV. On a stolen marine ship in the middle of the sea, East Blue. You guys make yourselves comfortable here, I'm going to change. I can't stand these tight clothes anymore. Luffy quickly said as he entered one of the cabins. While he said these words to his new companions, he closed the door and accessed his system shop. In the shop, he had 30 million berries stored to spend on almost anything in this world. Luffy started by picking clothing that matched his style, which wasn't difficult to find since the shop had everything as long as you had the money for it. With the items purchased, he began to put them on and returned to the deck where everyone was already, earning some surprised looks from them for his new appearance. Luffy wore black tactical pants with military-style black boots. He went shirtless, revealing his muscular build and front tattoos. He had a black captain's cloak, identical in style to Gold D. Rogers, draped over one shoulder. On the back of the cloak, he customized it with a pirate skull, a Jolly Roger with the straw hat. He wouldn't change that from the original. His whole style was black, as it was his favorite color. He spent 10 million berries on these items, so they were far from low quality. For clothing, it was a fortune. But it wasn't just the clothes he bought at that moment, he had a pistol that cost 5 million and a saber at his waist that cost another 5 million, bringing his total expenditure to 20 million, with 10 million left in the shop at the moment. These items were not cheap, far from it, but they were nothing compared to the higher value items in the shop. From what he saw, there were incredible items available. An example was Gold D. Rogers' sword, Ace, which could be acquired for 10 billion berries, or 10 billion. Obtaining this item would not be easy, as it was worth more than killing 2 Yonko to receive that amount, a value that only the world nobles could have in their possession. His pistol and saber were not bad, but he didn't think they would hold up well against the power he possessed. So, it was obvious that he planned to replace them with better items in the future when he had a good amount of money available. So, are we heading in the right direction? He asked the group in front of him. Shirahoshi, who was sitting on a marine bench, gazing at the sea and the horizon, looked at Luffy thoughtfully, unsure how to respond. Yamato seemed equally lost. Lami was bandaged in a corner beside Beppo, and she didn't even bother to look at him, still holding a grudge over the beating he had given her in her current condition. Kuina still had the mentality of an 11-year-old girl, so Luffy didn't expect her to respond. But by looking at their expressions, the captain realized that there was a problem in their silence. Why haven't I found anyone intelligent for navigation yet? He thought, somewhat frustrated. I'm not sure, Captain. Zoro was the only one who confirmed anything, but when it came to directions, he was not very reliable, so Luffy ignored him. His only choice was Beppo. Beppo, are we still on the same course? He asked. Yes, Captain. He seemed happy to respond. Don't call him Captain. Lami yelled angrily. I'm sorry. He jumped in fear. Seeing this, Luffy sighed once more. Lami, I know you're angry with me, but I want to talk to you. Come with me to the bow of the ship, we have some things to discuss. He said, and, before she could react, he picked her up like a princess again, despite her struggling. She couldn't do anything about it. I hope you don't come to me with more nonsense. First, you took me away from my journey and my sea, and now I'm bandaged because of you. If I weren't a doctor, I would have to forget my journey for the next few months. She didn't waste any time and growled at him. Why would I join your crew? You may be a monster, but even if you kill me, I don't intend to do that. She immediately roared. As expected of AD and probably a Conqueror's haki user, Luffy thought as he looked at the furious woman. Listen, I won't force you to do it. If you don't want to, I'll let you go. But I'm sure I can give you something that almost no one else can in this world. He said sincerely, and she made a face when she heard those words. What can you give me that's so precious that you brought me here somehow and want me to join you? She was finally listening to him for the first time. Simple, your revenge. I can help you destroy Don Quixote da Flamingo. Luffy simply stated, leaving her immediately stunned. For a moment, I thought her backstory might have changed since she's a woman here, but seeing that surprise on her face, she really has the same background as the original Trafalgar D. Law. Luffy analyzed this situation with some satisfaction. Do you know what you're saying? You know that Doflamingo is not only protected by the world government as a former world noble, but also by other even more terrible powers that you can't touch. She didn't fail to exclaim in disbelief at my words and said that expecting some fear on Luffy's face. But the captain had to disappoint her at this moment. Ah, you already know about that, don't you? But I shouldn't be so surprised by someone whose life's only goal is to kill that man. Of course, you have all sorts of information with you. He smiled and continued. If you think I'm afraid of Kaido, one of the Yonko, you're quite mistaken. I'm going to destroy his reign myself when I go to the New World. Do you see that girl with a foolish face over there? I pointed to Yamato some tens of meters away from us, who smiled when she saw Luffy talking about her and waved her hand like a happy fool. Before Lami could speak in surprise, he continued. She is Kaido's daughter, just as I took you from North Blue, I summoned her right from under her father's nose. Kaido knows that his daughter hates him, but he wouldn't stand idly by knowing that I kidnapped her from Onigashima and brought her to East Blue. He'll come after me as soon as he finds out. Luffy said calmly. Is that true? Lami was astonished by this. Yes. With me, I will guarantee you enough strength to have your revenge with your own hands and not wait for someone else to do it for you. He said because, in the future after the time skip, he was sure that Law wouldn't have the strength to face Doflamingo alone. But Luffy was confident that he could make Lami very strong by that time, and that kind of revenge should be done by her and not by someone else. Do you really mean it? She asked with a lot of disbelief, which Luffy could understand well. Yes, look at me. I have a body as powerful as Yamato and her father. I have 2 disaster-level devil fruits with me, which I consider to be a level above the others. He spoke sincerely. Luffy didn't intend to hide these things from his potential crew members. He didn't like building close relationships with lies. He would be open as soon as possible. Besides, who could believe those words? The Moa Moa no Mi was hidden behind the power of his Zoan, as it wasn't something tangible. At most, people could suspect when he changed the mass of objects and people, but he would always use his Manticore Zoan to hide the multiplication fruit for now. When the real threat was exposed, he would almost have no one to fear in the sea. 2 disaster-level devil fruits! She exclaimed so loudly that even the others heard it. You know that with this and a reliable crew, it's only a matter of time until the sea and the world are under my rule. Luffy said arrogantly, as that was what he believed. Lamy fell silent, contemplating my words. Alright. I'll join you because, above all, you're AD. But I hope you keep your word. The moment I see that you won't fulfill your promise, I will leave the group or even kill you for deceiving me. She threatened, but Luffy gave her a big smile. Ha 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 ha. Then I say, welcome to the group, emo girl. Luffy was laughing with joy at this moment. Who are you calling an emo girl? She shouted with a comical face. Hehe, anyway, let's celebrate with the others. He said as he received a message from the system. Crew, Trafalgar D. Lamy has joined as a crew member. Crew, Papo has joined as a crew member. This is great, I said to myself. Monkey D. Luffy POV. On a stolen marine ship in the middle of the sea, East Blue. It didn't take them long to ransack the marine ship's storage and kitchen to prepare their first of many banquets to come. Let's celebrate! Luffy announced with a smile as he gathered with everyone else. Celebrate! Yamato immediately agreed, expressing her happiness. Tisk, the marine's stash is pretty weak. Zoro grumbled as he drank a bottle he had taken from the ship's storage. You've become an alcoholic after 11 years. Kuina teased beside him, expressing some surprise at how the young boy had turned into a young man who loved sake. Is that good? Shirahoshi asked curiously about the drink. That's not for you, you're only 18. Here, take this, orange juice for you, princess. Luffy immediately intervened and handed her something healthy. Meanwhile, he picked up a bottle next to Zoro, who looked at him with some surprise. But aren't you younger than her? Zoro asked, surprised because Luffy had mentioned he was only 17, just like the original. Ha ha ha. That's true, but I'm the captain. I said, drinking a new type of alcohol that I had never tasted in my life, but I didn't even grimace at the sake. What kind of logic is that? Lamy asked beside him, in a bad mood. Should I call you captain now, captain? Papo was still lost since his captain had said they would be part of Luffy's crew. I believe you can call him captain now, Lamy muttered, and she was quite proud, which didn't surprise Luffy much. Anyway, what's the plan now, captain? Zoro asked curiously, drawing everyone's attention to him because Luffy had so far only recruited them and hadn't talked much about his future plans, other than wanting to head towards Orange Town with Megalo pulling the ship at high speed at the moment. Well, first, before I want to go to the Grand Line, there are some things to do in this sea, and one of them is to recruit some members with high potential. As powerful as we are here, in the Grand Line, things change, he said, looking at everyone and continued. At the moment, the most powerful member of the group is Yamato, the vice-captain of the crew. But even though she is powerful, we can't fight against the world with our current strength, so my top priority is to get stronger and recruit new crew members, which includes stealing a lot of money as we sail this sea. I need to gather as much money as I can to improve the crew, and the best way to do that is by taking everything we can along the way. Most of you have no idea where we are going and what the true powers of this world are, but there are people in the Grand Line who can wipe out an entire island. For example, Zoro and Kuina, your dream is to become the world's greatest swordsman, right? Yes. For sure. I'm not saying this to discourage you, but to increase your determination. Mihawk, currently the world's greatest swordsman, could cut the island of Shell City in half. Look at that possibility, you have a long way to go, and you'll never get stronger if you stay here in the East Blue or avoid great dangers that may even threaten your lives. What? Cut that island? That's impossible. Both expressed disbelief, and I sighed. As I said, that's his level and the level of several monsters in the second half of the Grand Line. I want you to bear in mind that you'll have to become powerful at that level if you want to survive and achieve that dream. Scary. Scary. Papo shouted. Papo, don't worry, and I have faith that everyone will become powerful here. Luffy wanted to encourage everyone with a confident smile. Do you think I can become strong enough to protect the Fishman Island and fulfill my mother's dream? Suddenly, Shirahoshi asked timidly, believing in Luffy's smile. I know you can, and I'll protect you until that time, princess, because I have faith in you. That's why I summoned you, as well as everyone here. I told her and the rest of them. Yeah, thank you, Luffy-sama, she said, a little teary-eyed and touched. I think I can become strong enough to protect the island of the Tritons and fulfill my mother's dream. She asked with a little smile. I have no doubts about that, I answered, which made her very happy. Zoro is right, I'm going to become strong enough not to lose to Zoro or anyone else. Kuina said as well. He, then I'll get stronger to beat that old man with my own hands. Yamato said confidently, referring to her father. I'm going to get my revenge. So, I'll get stronger too. Lami said, still bandaged, but she was now swept up by the group's atmosphere. I want to get strong too. I'm sorry. Bappo didn't get out of character, he shouted, and everyone paid attention to him just for him to become embarrassed and apologize, but Luffy could see his determination. Now let's continue our feast because today marks the beginning of the infamous pirate group's journey, the Straw Hat Pirates. Luffy announced, laughing and happily creating a bond with several of their dreams and goals here. For the rest of the day, the group celebrated, drinking and eating until night fell. It didn't take long for the night to grow in the sky and dawn. On the deck, there was Zoro and Bappo sleeping on the floor. The girls were in the cabins. Megalo had shrunk again to rest and was sleeping with Shirahoshi in a room. Meanwhile, Luffy was the only one awake this night, standing outside alone. He was experiencing his first night in this world with a great sense of satisfaction for everything he had achieved on this day, looking up at the stars. He couldn't help but savor this moment while he took a bottle of rum and gazed at the stars. I still can't believe I'm in this world. What's more, I've become the protagonist. Naturally, the future won't end well without the original Luffy, so I'll live my own adventure. I just don't know if the result will be good or bad for this world, but I'll help all my allies achieve their goals and live my own way without regrets. In any case, I have powerful people with me now. I've always wondered what it would be like to have Yamato, Law, or Shirahoshi at the beginning of the journey, and now I can experience all that. Luffy was talking to himself with a great feeling of satisfaction swelling within him at this moment. While he was lost in his thoughts and muttering to himself, he heard footsteps. Even without his observation haki, his enhanced senses as a mythical Zoan user gave him much sharper hearing and smell, and he knew whose footsteps they were and even recognized their scent. You seem unable to sleep. Luffy commented to no one in particular as he continued to gaze at the stars. I could say the same for you. The female voice replied and continued to speak. But I really can't sleep, it's hard to sleep when you knew you were dead until recently. Besides, Yamato snores too much. Ha ha ha. She laughed at her own joke. Zoro is the same, look at him over there. Luffy pointed to his new friend, who was snoring on the floor, still holding a bottle of sake. That's true. Ha ha ha. She laughed but soon turned melancholic. But you know? I'm glad to see someone from my past, even with my memories still fresh from that boy who was smaller than me. She said nostalgically. He, when I brought him to you, I thought Zoro would hand over your old sword, but it seems he still has it. Is there something special about it? Luffy asked, curious. Well, he tried really hard, but I refused. Since my father gave it to him, I have no right to take it back. She explained. Anyway, we'll get you an even better one later. Luffy looked at her with a smile for the first time. Are you serious? Do you really want me on your crew? Do you believe I can pursue my dream? She stared at Luffy, who was illuminated by the moonlight. I have no doubt about that, Kuina. But I can believe that Zoro can become the greatest as well. Now, this battle is between you two. Ha ha ha. He said sincerely, believing that both she and Zoro could become the character known as the world's greatest swordsman. Well, I certainly won't lose to that idiot in the end. She said with determination. Then I believe in you, he simply said those words. Oh, looking at it that way, I think you're hitting on me. She joked, but she could see her face turn a bit red. Ah, about that, you might have the body of a 22-year-old woman, but you're still a stinky brat. Why would I be interested in a child? Ha 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 ha. Luffy laughed as he spoke to her while drinking from a bottle he held in his hand. Who are you calling a child? She shouted in frustration and walked away angrily, her mood now ruined. Haha, in about 7 years, maybe I can be interested in you, he couldn't help but mutter. Hearing that, she stopped for a moment, but soon continued walking away, still in a bad mood. Luffy, you idiot, she muttered and went on. And Luffy returned to drinking under the stars and thinking about his future plans. Monkey D. Luffy POV. On board a stolen marine ship in the vast expanse of the East Blue. The following day, Luffy woke up peacefully and decided to attend to some unfinished business while still in bed. There was one thing he hadn't explored the previous day, something he hadn't found a moment for amidst all the excitement of recruiting his first crew member. This was the crew system, an option that had become available after acquiring his first nakama. Opening the system, he navigated to the crew option, and a screen appeared. Crew. Monkey D. Luffy, Captain. Devil Fruits, Moa Moa no Mi, D/icon no Mi, Model, Chaos Ifrit, D. Vitality, S. Strength, B. Defense, A. Speed, C. Spirit, B. House Hoku Haki, locked. Voice of all things, locked. As a member of your crew, all your talents are increased by 100%. Yamato, Vice Captain. Devil Fruits, Inu no Mi, Model, Akoka no Makamai, B. Vitality, S. Strength, A. Defense, S. Speed, B. Spirit, A. Swordsmanship, B. Kanbunshoku Haki, D. Busashoku Haki, C. House Hoku Haki, D. As a member of your crew, all your talents are increased by 100%. Shirahoshi, no specific role. Devil Fruits, none. Vitality, S. Strength, E. Defense, D. Speed, E. Spirit, S. Poseidon, locked. House Hoku Haki, locked. As a member of your crew, all your talents are increased by 100%. Megalo, mascot. Devil Fruits, none. Vitality, C. Strength, C. Defense, D. Speed, D. Spirit, D. As a member of your crew, all your talents are increased by 100%. Zoro, swordsman. Devil Fruits, none. Vitality, D. Strength, C. Defense, D. Speed, C. Spirit, C. Swordsmanship, Santorio, C. House Hoku Haki, locked. As a member of your crew, all your talents are increased by 100%. Trafalgar D. Lamy, Doctor. Devil Fruits, Op no Mi, C. Vitality, C. Strength, C. Defense, C. Speed, B. Spirit, C. Swordsmanship, D. House Hoku Haki, locked. As a member of your crew, all your talents are increased by 100%. Beppo, assistant. Devil Fruits, none. Vitality, D. Strength, E. Defense, E. Speed, E. Spirit, C. As a member of your crew, all your talents are increased by 100%. System rules. The classification level of the system works from E to X, where X represents the ultimate limit, with the progression from lowest to highest. E-D-C-B-A-S-SS-SS-SS-X. What? Luffy exclaimed in surprise at the incredible bonuses each crew member received from the system. It was a significant advantage that made his crew much more powerful. Ha 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 ha. I mean, it might be overpowered, but it's great because my crew can be even more powerful than I planned. Even though I can't directly control their development, I can still monitor all of them. Luffy mused with great satisfaction. Furthermore, he could now see hidden abilities within each of his crew members. 4 of them had the House Hoku Haki, although most of them couldn't access it yet. 5 crew members possessed the power of the Conqueror's Haki, including Luffy. It was an extraordinary start for their journey. Did you know that Roger had 3 people with this Haki? Luffy thought to himself. And as for rocks, they had 5, from what I know, Zarik, Newgate, Shiki, Kaido, and Big Mom. But look at my crew, we have 5 members with House Hoku Haki and an ancient weapon at the beginning of our journey. Luffy couldn't help but laugh internally at the immense potential. Shaking off his thoughts, Luffy rose from his bed and made his way to the ship's kitchen, where his comrades were enjoying their first meals of the day. Good morning. Luffy greeted them, and he received greetings in return. Alright, Megalo, can you get back to pulling the ship today? We're nearing Orange Town, Luffy asked the shark, who responded enthusiastically with Sharky Sharky Sharky. After they finished eating, Luffy went outside with Megalo and returned him to his full-sized form. The shark dove into the water and began pulling the anchor once again. Although Luffy could use his devil fruit powers to multiply the ship's speed, he decided to focus on other matters for now. Now, we have some time before we reach the next island, so I'm going to start training you all here. Training? How can you do that? Zoro inquired, curious about Luffy's plan. It's simple. I'll use my devil fruit powers to enhance your abilities, Luffy replied, a confident grin on his face. What kind of powers are those, Luffy-sama? Shirahoshi asked hesitantly. I have the Moa Moa no Mi, and I can multiply many things with it, Luffy explained, earning surprised looks from his crew members. However, before anyone could ask more questions, he continued. For instance, Lamy, I noticed that your recovery magically increased from yesterday to today. Did you do something? He asked, looking at the doctor, who had fully recovered overnight and was back to 100%, much to his confusion. Yes, did you do something? Lamy inquired, equally surprised. I did. I increased your recovery rate by 30 times. That's my limit for now, but it's quite overpowered. Ha ha ha, Luffy chuckled. That's unbelievably incredible, you know. Kuina exclaimed, astonished. I know, but even though it's overpowered, there are still some limits. I can't increase a person's size by 30 times, only up to 10%. The same applies to enhancing your learning abilities. I can boost your training speed by a maximum of 3 times. But that's what I want, and it will help a lot when I apply it to you, Luffy explained. Hold on. Are you saying you can increase our learning by 3 times? So, a day of training with you is equivalent to 3 days? Yamato asked in disbelief. That's correct, Luffy confirmed, but he knew the actual number was closer to 6 days, as the system provided a full bonus to their talents. However, he chose to withhold this information for now, not quite sure how to explain it to them. It's truly amazing. But if the world finds out, Lami murmured. I know, Lami, but I trust you all. That's why I'm sharing this with you. As I said, I'm going to make all of you even stronger. Didn't I promise that yesterday when we officially formed this pirate crew? Luffy said confidently. Yes, thank you, Luffy-sama. Shirahoshi quickly jumped happily onto the captain to hug him, and Luffy was quick to catch the princess so she wouldn't fall to the ground. Incredible, I heard Bappo muttering beside. Anyway, I'm going to train you physically. Come with me to a more open space. Luffy led them to the middle of the deck. It was an open part of the ship with plenty of space for everyone. I'll start. Shirahoshi, step back a bit. I'll begin with them first to test their levels, I said, and the princess swam in the air with her bubble of air to distance herself from them. Moa Moa no Mi, gravity, apply 5 times. Pressure surged in the middle of the group, causing everyone to fall to the ground, except Yamato, who barely felt the pressure and looked at everyone with amusement. What is this? Zoro asked alarmed, pinned to the ground, but gradually trying to push against the pressure with his face against the ship's wood. I'm applying 5 times the gravity, it's only 5 times your weight. Some of you are barely suffering, while others can't even resist, Luffy explained. Bappo and Kuina, with her weak body, couldn't even move their mouths to complain. Seeing that Zoro, Lami, Kuina, and Bappo couldn't handle just 5 times their weight, Luffy opened a store and bought some weights, spending some berries. Take these. He tossed 4 sets to attach to their arms, legs, and a weighted shirt that he bought from the store. I've added 100 kilograms to each with my multiplication. You'll follow a training regimen that I'll provide with physical exercises. As you get accustomed to the weights, I'll double them using the power of my devil fruit. You'll also be under the influence of 3 times the learning speed I've already applied to you, so make the most of it, I said and looked at Shirahoshi. Take these weights, Shirahoshi. You'll start with 20 kilograms, and later, I'll increase them, understood? I told her. Yes, Luffy-sama. Now, he turned to Yamato. Yamato, you'll train with me under the pressure of gravity and weights, he said to her. Yes, you can count on me. She replied with a confident smile. Yamato and I have the most powerful bodies here due to our lineage, so I'll train with her under the highest pressure I can withstand, Luffy quickly reasoned. They quickly began their set and exercise routine. Luffy couldn't help but notice the beautiful daughter of Kaido in front of him as they trained. She's stronger than I am, so I've strengthened her with some multiplied weights while I do my push UPS in 10 times gravity, which is my current limit, Luffy thought as he continued the exercises. After a whole morning of training, they finally had a break to rest, and Luffy gave Megalo a break to join them for lunch. Everyone was quite tired. Wow, that was worse than any training I've ever had, but I'm satisfied. I can already feel some results. Zoro, who was eating while lying down due to the paralysis from training, commented with a slight smile. It's really invigorating. Yamato said, as she had been training with both the added pressure and the weights Luffy gave her, feeling better than any other training she had experienced in Wano. I'm so tired. Shirahoshi didn't stop complaining, along with a broken Bappo beside her. Lami and Kuina remained silent, but they were equally tired. Despite everyone being satisfied with the results they could already feel after just a few hours of training, Luffy let them rest because, as their first training, it's good to let their bodies start getting used to it. They still had plenty of time to train before entering the Grand Line. Seeing this, Luffy grabbed a beach chair from the sailors and lay down to rest. His body was equally tired, and he ended up taking a nap at that moment. He woke up when someone shouted his name in distress. Luffy-sama! Shirahoshi cried out to him. Luffy opened his eyes and saw the mermaid who was asking for help. On her end, there were 2 men holding swords and threatening her on the ship. He. I never thought I'd see a mermaid here in the East Blue. I didn't even know they existed, I thought it was a legend from the Grand Line. Captain Buggy will surely compensate us for this. Seeing this, Luffy became furious and quickly used his increased speed, punching the men with an amethyst flame without giving them time to react. The 2 men, who didn't even see Luffy approaching like a flash, were hit and covered the area where they were with their flames. They didn't even have time to react or see what had hit them, they simply disintegrated instantly with the scorching and dangerous heat of that mysterious fire. Boom! The explosion of flames was so loud that it made the ship shake a bit. What is this? Zoro jumped off the mast quickly. He was sleeping but woke up due to Shirahashi's crying, though he reacted much more slowly than Luffy. I ignored Zoro and the other crew members on their way and saw Shirahoshi on the deck with a scared and crying face. Luffy sighed as he walked over to her. Hey, are you okay? He asked as he knelt beside her, gently touching her head. I don't know. They said they were going to sell me. Why? She began to cry and jumped on Luffy to hug and cry on him. At this point, everyone on the ship had gathered around due to the commotion. I know, but don't worry, they won't harm you anymore. I promised you that you'd be safe with me, understood? Luffy tried to calm the young mermaid. Yes, thank you, Luffy-sama. I was so scared, she murmured, still crying. Anyway, where did these guys come from? Lami asked loudly as she saw the area I had struck, destroyed, while noticing only some scraps of their clothes that hadn't disintegrated with the captain's punch. This made her think about the fate of their future enemies and caused her to break into a sweat, imagining that he wouldn't show mercy if someone hurt his crew. Doesn't matter who they are or if they've seen a mermaid. They have no idea even on a ship with a marine flag. Kuina complained. What? He shouted, and Luffy ignored him to look at the girl with a fishtail and pink hair clinging to him like a panda to a tree. Shirahoshi, how did these men get in here? He finally asked the mermaid seriously, who was clinging to his neck and crying. I was looking at the view to admire the sun and the horizon, then I saw a boat next to the ship asking for help. I wanted to help those humans, and when they got on our ship, they threatened me with their swords, so I screamed for Luffy-sama, who helped me right away. She sobbed all of this. Sigh. After sighing, Luffy turned to the group that was observing them. Yamato, I know you have observation haki. You should have known about them before anyone else. I don't want to see any intruders entering this ship so easily, understand? I said seriously to Yamato. Observation haki? Kuina asked curiously, but Luffy ignored her and focused on Yamato's response. Yes, you're right. It won't happen again, she said seriously. Yamato had indeed sensed their presence when Shirahoshi helped them onto the ship. However, since she saw that the mermaid was helping them, she didn't think it would be a problem. She took that into account only because she couldn't sense the emotions of others with her current level of haki. Great, please, I'm counting on you and Megalo. I told the shark, which was still hugging Shirahoshi. You will always stay with Shirahoshi, don't lose sight of her again, understand? I spoke to the shark. Sharky sharky sharky. It said, determined and a bit remorseful for not being with its friend right now, as it was sleeping. Shirahoshi, I know you have a good heart, and I admire that in you. But you shouldn't trust just anyone, you know how cruel everyone can be, even humans and fishmen, right? He said seriously to her. Yes, Luffy-sama. I'm sorry, I'll call you or someone else the next time I see something unusual, she said, still crying. Now, get your things ready. We're very close to Orange Town now, and it won't be a peaceful visit. We'll face our first enemy pirate crew as the Straw Hat crew. He said determined. Yes, Luffy-sama. Shirahoshi replied, feeling a bit better. Sharky. Megalo said. Yes, Captain. Zoro responded. Yes, my Luffy. Yamato quickly put her club on her shoulder. Yes, Lami said, holding her sword. Yes. I'm sorry, Bappo entered a depressed state. Kuina didn't say anything because she wasn't an official member of the group. She really wanted to be part of this, but she still had to think about it before talking to her father. Luffy looked at everyone, satisfied, as he pushed Shirahoshi away from him to look at the small shadow of the island on the horizon, growing larger as they approached. Third-person POV. Orange Town, East Blue. What? Are you saying this woman took our Grand Line map? Buggy shouted at his man, who appeared holding a woman beside him after catching her in the town. Yes, Captain. It was her. The man quickly affirmed with some anger in his voice because he had a hard time catching this thief. I see. So, young lady, did you really think you could steal from Buggy's pirates and get away with it? Buggy himself asked directly to the orange-haired girl, who was cornered and captured at this point. I apologize. She stammered, making any excuse. Huh? Apologies? Do you really think we'll accept that? The red-nosed man said angrily and mockingly. But I'm just a poor girl, the great man with such a powerful and brave nose, he wouldn't let this girl go, would he? She tried to seduce Buggy with words and expressions on her face. Ha ha ha, thank you for knowing and recognizing my greatness while praising my big nose, maybe I can. Captain Buggy. Kabeji alerted by his side, and Buggy quickly realized he was falling for the siren's song here. Do you think you can deceive me by praising me? Throw her in the cell, we're going to blow her up. Buggy said indignantly, as he was reacting to her earlier flattery easily. Before she could protest, her arms were grabbed, and she was locked in a cage. Ha 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 ha, men! Today, I'll show you what happens to those who try to steal from us. Buggy shouted to his crew. Eee! A chorus was heard from his men after this. Prepare one of the buggy balls. Buggy shouted, and a little clown-costumed man rushed to the depot and brought a dark ball with the clown symbol that was the size of a cannonball. He brought it with difficulty since it was equally heavy as a cannonball but much more powerful. What is this? The girl, named Nami, was scared when she saw this. She knew she could die there. Your death. Ha 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 ha. Buggy laughed, seeing her frightened face. But I'm just a girl. She tried to defend herself, but Buggy didn't even care about her pleas as he aimed his cannon right at her in front of the city. The impact would not only kill her but also take the entire city behind her with the explosion. Buggy wanted to see destruction at that moment as his best show. Look, men, get ready to watch the great show. Buggy shouted while preparing to light the cannon's fuse. Meanwhile, Nami looked at this with no expression. She realized she was going to die there, unable to do anything. Her death would be the pirates' entertainment, and she closed her eyes as her final act to avoid seeing her own death, thinking that everything she had fought for was in vain. Her life would end there without her being able to save her village and the people living there. But at the last moment, something unexpected happened. Captain! A man came running when Buggy was about to blow up the thief and the city. What is it? I hope it's important enough to stop my show. Buggy was so angry with this crew member who interrupted him that he wanted to put him in the cage with the girl if it wasn't something important. Marines! A marine ship is coming here at a speed like I've never seen before. He shouted. What? How did the Marines get here so quickly without anyone noticing? We captured this town today. Buggy shouted in surprise. Men, get ready to. Hi! Boom! 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 Cannonball explosions began to appear on the sides of the camp, destroying everything and killing some of Buggy's men in the process. Ah! Captain, do something! They shouted as they were hit. Captain! Stop it, Cap! Hi! Boom! Buggy watched his men being massacred by the artillery attacking the camp and became furious. He quickly looked towards the sea at this moment. There was a marine ship. By the noise, there were 2 cannons firing balls at the camp, but at the same time, 4 shots were fired. Buggy didn't know why this was happening, but it didn't matter, he had to do something. He couldn't bear to see his men being slaughtered like this right in front of his eyes. Fire the buggy ball at them, now! Buggy quickly told his men, who, in the midst of the chaos, began turning the cannon towards the ship in the sea. Shoot shoot shoot! Buggy was angry and crazy as he yelled. Soon the fuse was lit and began to burn. Boom! The explosion of the buggy ball was heard as soon as the fuse reached its end. The ball flew towards the ship, and Buggy hoped it would be annihilated with all those marines who attacked him without warning, just killing his men so cruelly in his view. Meanwhile, a moment ago, on that same marine ship. Can you see them? Kuina asked by the side as she saw the ship approaching the island. I can't see the details, but I can see the pirate group with Buggy's flag. Luffy said a few kilometers away from where Buggy and his crew were. Okay, prepare the cannons, bring all the balls and some of the cannons here. Luffy told Yamato to take a cannon while he helped her with another one. Zoro, Bappo, Lamy, and Kuina would bring the cannonballs and put them up. Once we set up a good spot in the center of the ship to shoot against Buggy's group, we waited for the ship to get closer. It was already under the effect of 30 times speed with the captain's fruit to take them by surprise without them noticing. With the ship's speed increased, the Mugiwaras were approaching surprisingly quickly without drawing attention to themselves at this point. The whole crew began to hear the screams of those pirates from afar, as if those men were a bunch of animals. They seem to be celebrating, Lamy said. It looks like they've caught someone and planned to kill that person, who is in a cage. With enhanced ears from another mythical Zoan and her observation haki, it wasn't difficult for Yamato to identify the situation. So they've already got her. Luffy said, looking at a little orange dot, where Nami's hair should be. Okay, does anyone here know how to use these cannons? Luffy finally asked, turning to his crew, but the answer he received was silence. While Shirahoshi, Megalo looked at the pieces of metal with curiosity, Kuina and Lamy whistled to avoid the question. Bappo seemed hesitant to answer, while Zoro was looking bored at me. Yamato had a big smile on her face and was the first to answer. No. Why the hell do you look happy to answer that? Luffy yelled at her. Tisk, anyway, I'll teach you. I've checked the gunpowder, everything is okay. I want Bappo and Shirahoshi to aim the cannons and pull the cord to fire. Kuina and Lamy will reload the cannons, and, as I said, for you two, it's just pulling the cord and waiting to reload, got it? Luffy asked. What do you and Yamato do in the meantime? Zoro asked. Simple, me and Yamato don't need a cannon, we're going to throw the balls with our hands. You stay on defense in case they retaliate, you cut all the cannonballs coming our way. Wait a minute. Kuina shouted in disbelief. You're going to shoot with your hands? She asked, thinking she had heard wrong, while everyone was stunned by this as well. Yes, I saw Gramps do it once, so I learned from him. Luffy said simply. What kind of monster grandfather teaches his grandson to shoot cannonballs with his hands? The chorus was heard while only Yamato didn't seem to care, after all, her father was Kaido. That doesn't matter now, let's all get to work. Luffy shouted, and everyone started taking their assigned positions. Do you see the middle of the square? Don't shoot there, got it? There's someone important locked in that cage. I said. Who, Luffy-sama? Shirahoshi asked curiously. A new crewmate, of course. Luffy smiled as he looked at the square. Moa Moa no Mi, strength, apply 30 times. After feeling the effect, I picked up a cannonball with one hand without any problem, and Luffy threw it into the air to feel its weight in this state. It's like I'm dealing with a golf ball, how fun. Luffy was genuinely excited. Yamato also picked up a black cannonball from the pile with the same ease as Luffy. Is it just throwing it? Yamato asked with a smile. Yes, just aim where I said, don't shoot in the middle of the square. Luffy warned as he waited for his other crewmates to get ready to attack. Are we ready? Luffy shouted with an excited smile. I had never participated in a naval battle in my life, so it was a new experience. Yes, my Luffy. Yamato smiled. Of course, Captain. Bappo said obediently. Yes, Luffy-sama, Shirahoshi said. After making sure everyone was loaded and their sights locked, Luffy raised his hand with the cannonball behind it and prepared. After waiting for a few seconds, he prepared to throw it forward and shouted. Fire! Launch! Launch! Bang! Bang! The first sounds were the balls launched by Luffy and Yamato, followed closely by the cannons exploding in gunpowder as the balls were fired at high speed in that direction. Boom! 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 The explosions of impacts in the middle of the pirates were heard by everyone on the ship. This is so cool! To Luffy's surprise, he looked at Shirahoshi, who had her ears covered with the noise from the cannons. She seemed to be enjoying the explosions they had helped create. It made him wonder if she even knew that no one would be fine if they were hit by these explosions, but Luffy soon shrugged it off. Lami, Kuina. Prepare the cannons again. Yes. Yes. Room. Lami struck her pose, and her power appeared, making the ball in the pile float towards Bappo's cannon. Oh! If you can do that, then restock Shirahoshi's cannon as well. Luffy yelled at her and continued. Why didn't you tell me that earlier? Luffy couldn't help but ask with a vein on his forehead since she hadn't said anything about it before. Because you didn't ask, she said teasingly to Luffy. This emo girl knows how to get on my nerves. Luffy couldn't help but curse her. Anyway, Kuina, stay with Zoro if he needs help. The captain instructed the woman who was standing in front of the pile of cannonballs as the black balls flew to restock and reload the cannons, thanks to Lami's power. Once all the cannons were loaded with ammunition, Luffy and Yamato prepared their cannonballs in hand. Fire! Launch! Launch! Bang! Bang! Boom! 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 Fire! Launch! Launch! Bang! Bang! Boom! 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 Fire! Launch! Launch! Bang! Bang! Boom! 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 The attack was devastating the entire buggy pirates camp, and Luffy didn't envy anyone who was there at this moment. This is so much fun! Shirahoshi shouted happily. It's really fun! Bappo joined in with the mermaid. This is so boring, Zoro muttered pompously, as he wasn't doing anything so far, just watching. Don't be like that, training is more worthwhile than fighting these guys, trust me. Luffy said, trying to reassure the green-haired swordsman. Seems like they're aiming that funny-looking cannon at us. Yamato spoke next to me, and Luffy turned to look towards the island. There, the famous buggy ball was pointed at them. That cannon may look silly, but it has a lot of attack power, and don't worry, I'll take care of it. Luffy affirmed confidently. Huh? And me? Didn't I take care of the ship's defense? Sharky sharky sharky. Zoro and a mini Megalo immediately expressed dissatisfaction, Zoro because I had told him to stay in place and take care of it, while Megalo felt somewhat useless since he had no task there. Look closely at what will happen and tell me later how you'll take care of it. I said to Zoro as I prepared for the buggy ball aimed at us. Asterisk bay aaa on nug. Asterisk. I heard the explosion as the cannonball was coming at high speed towards the ship. Luffy looked at it and opened one hand. A purple flame began to spin around his palm as it was being charged with more power with each passing moment. When he saw that there was enough power in his hand, he pointed it in that direction, and the flame shot out as if it were a cannonball from his hand. Boom! When it left my hand, a small explosion was heard. The cannonball and the flame collided at high speed, 1 kilometer between the ship and the island. The cannonball was fired much earlier, but my flame was much faster. When the two collided, nullifying their progress on the way, a flash appeared, followed by a force impact and an explosion of water, fire, and steam was seen in front of the ship and the island. Asterisk. Asterisk. The light was the first thing that blinded the spectators, followed by the deafening noise, as a shockwave manifested in a 360-degree direction. To all sides, they felt the explosion. My god! What was that? We could be dead now. I'm sorry. Hey, this is not a joke. How the hell do these pirates have such a weapon? So scary. Sharky. Does anyone realize that the captain had the same explosive power as that bomb, just by throwing a flame through his hand? That was so fun. Luffy's crewmates each had a different opinion, while trying to balance themselves on the ship, which was shaking a lot and unstable after receiving an impact of this magnitude. Third-person POV. Orange Town, East Blue. As soon as the explosion subsided and the entire area fell into silence, all those who had witnessed this spectacle were left wondering what had just happened. Whistle. In the midst of the silence that enveloped the atmosphere, Luffy whistled, breaking the quiet, and exclaimed. That was amazing, the art is an explosion. Ha ha ha. Luffy laughed heartily, snapping the rest of his crew out of their dazed state, and they stared at him as if he were a madman. How can you find this incredible? Kuina and Lamy shouted comically. Luffy paid no attention to them and looked at the island, still some distance away. He turned to his crew with a smile. I think our friends are waiting for us, so let's keep attacking them. Luffy said as the ship regained speed after the explosion had temporarily hindered its progress. Are the cannons ready? Keep firing, Kuina, you're in charge of them. I'll head over there to attack the center of Buggy's camp with Yamato. Luffy said as wings sprouted from his back, and his hair grew. Yamato exclaimed in surprise when she was suddenly grabbed by Luffy and swiftly pulled into the air. Luffy soared into the sky with Yamato in tow, covering 2 kilometers in no time and landing in the square where the bandits' camp was located. Chaos reigned at the fringes of the location, but the center remained relatively unaffected by the marine ship's explosions. Luffy observed that they were preparing another buggy ball to shoot at the ship quickly, and he wasn't going to allow that to happen again. Hovering about 500 meters above the ground, with his arm wrapped around Yamato's waist, they rapidly descended at high speed. How is the ship intact after that attack? Moji asked in disbelief. They had been celebrating when they witnessed the explosion, thinking it had hit the ship. However, as the steam and smoke cleared, they were dumbfounded to see the ship approaching, seemingly unaffected by the explosion. Is it just me, or was the buggy ball explosion much more powerful than usual? I believe they intercepted the bomb before it hit the ship since the explosion seemed quite close, Kabeji commented next to Buggy. So prepare another buggy ball. Buggy shouted, and everyone readied themselves to launch another attack on the marine ship. Meanwhile, unnoticed by them, Luffy and Yamato had landed with a powerful thud. Boom! The sudden noise caught the attention of the pirates and the orange-haired girl, who watched in surprise as these figures appeared after the dust from the earlier attack began to settle. Who are you, you scoundrels? Buggy was the first to speak, clearly enraged, as he witnessed these two individuals. He shouted hysterically, seeing a tall, tattooed man wearing black pirate clothes with a straw hat on his back, along with a taller woman with horns holding a massive spiked kanabo. They seemed to have appeared magically in the midst of the ongoing battle against the navy, which was drawing closer. Since you asked, I'll answer. My name is Monkey D. Luffy. The man who will dominate all the seas of this world. Luffy announced with a confident smile. Huh? Do you think you're the Pirate King? You're insane. Kill them. Buggy immediately ordered, unwilling to hear any more of this nonsense. Boom! Boom! As Buggy shouted, the approaching marine ship continued firing cannonballs at the pirates under Kuina's direct orders on the ship's deck. 10 men ran towards Luffy and Yamato, brandishing swords with malicious intent. Yamato took a step forward and effortlessly used her kanabo to send anyone who came close flying like rockets. The witnesses were horrified to see this scene. Captain Buggy, they're monsters. Several of the men commented, their faces displaying shock. What? Kill them using the buggy ball. Buggy ordered, seeing the broken and unconscious bodies. I won't allow that. Luffy stated as he used his speed to pass through the pirates and appeared next to the cannon. The pirates were preparing to fire at point-blank range. What? A chorus of voices was heard as Luffy stood next to the cannon and used his muscles to lift the entire metal cannon effortlessly from the ground. Sorry, but I'll take this. Luffy said as he casually grabbed the cannon and raised it high, tossing it more than 500 meters into the sea like it was a toy. What? A chorus was heard as the pirates witnessed Luffy's superhuman strength when he threw their primary weapon into the air. It can't be possible. The orange-haired girl was left in shock, choking on her words after witnessing Luffy's incredible display of strength. She had never known or seen that humans could be so strong. Both Buggy, Kabeji, Moji, the giant lion, Richie, and the rest of the pirates were left astounded by the display of inhuman power. That must be the power of some devil fruit. Buggy exclaimed. Seeing the horrified silence that had taken over, Luffy turned to Buggy and said, Buggy, I'll give you a choice. I'll either let you surrender peacefully or beat you up before taking your bounty. What do you say? Luffy inquired, aiming to further provoke the comical clown. What did you say, you scoundrel? Are you bounty hunter Zoro? Buggy shouted angrily at Luffy's audacity but soon asked, curious if Zoro had arrived in the East Blue. No, I'm a pirate, and I'm after money, so I'll rob you and claim your bounty. Big Red Nose. Luffy grinned greedily and shouted to further provoke Buggy. What did you say? Curse you. Kabeji and Moji, deal with that woman, and I'll take care of this audacious pirate. Buggy said with hatred. He yelled without any concern for the approaching marines, as he launched an attack at Luffy. This man had enraged him and mocked his nose. Bara bara ho! Buggy launched an attack with knives between his fingers. Luffy looked at it and sighed. Then die. Luffy heard Buggy's words and, rather than using his devil fruit power, he simply dodged the knives. Don't run away, you scoundrel! Luffy heard Buggy shout as he easily evaded. Hey, is that your best speed? Mocking the clown, Luffy sprinted towards him with his fists. Buggy, seeing him coming, smiled, thinking that this man didn't possess the same speed he had demonstrated when he had appeared next to the cannon earlier. But Buggy, expecting to split his body to escape Luffy's attack, only detached his head, leaving his body exposed. Luffy didn't stop, remembering the same scene from the early chapters of the original story. What an idiot! Luffy couldn't help but taunt as he punched the exposed body with his normal strength, yet his enhanced body and the benefits of his Zoan-type devil fruit made his physical power an effortless weapon. He felt his punch burying into Buggy's abdomen. I thought the fool would only do this in the anime, but it seems I overestimated him. Luffy thought as he watched Buggy's body in front of him react to his punch. Quickly, the body had shrunk under the explosive impact. Buggy's head, floating in the air, had eyes rolled up as he sputtered, spitting out saliva. Afterward, the body soared like a rocket towards some nearby structures. Boom! Captain Buggy! The pirates cried out as they saw their captain's body flying, while his head suffered in the air. Third-person POV. Orange Town, East Blue. Buggy crashed directly into one of the houses, but his impact force was just enough to crack the structure. Buggy's headless body fell to the ground, and his head, still in the air, displayed all the agony of the impact. Damn, was the only muttered word he managed to utter through the pain, unable to breathe as he felt his bones breaking upon impact. Come on, I expected more from you, Luffy taunted, while Buggy still remained in the air with blank eyes. Meanwhile, Kabeji and Moji, with their lion, approached Yamato, unaware of how the battle between Buggy and Luffy was going. Huh? So, you guys are my opponents? Yamato asked calmly. Neither of the two pirates responded as they advanced. Kabeji was rapidly approaching her on a unicycle, wielding a katana, while Moji was even faster, riding Richie. Yamato felt no threat from them. She simply leaned to the side, waiting for the lion to jump at her. Ruoar. The lion leaped with murderous intent towards Yamato. Using her kanabo, she struck the lion while it was suspended in the air. Spectators could hear bones breaking, and the lion made a whimpering sound, never having a chance. Meow. The lion flew like a bullet with Moji still mounted on top, heading directly for one of the other houses in the town. Boom! The explosion left all the pirates dressed as clowns wide-eyed, watching one of their main members, along with that lion monster, easily defeated by this strange girl with red and yellow horns. Kabeji stopped his advance at that moment, sweating profusely as he was too nervous to continue after witnessing that scene. He began to pedal backward, torn by indecision about whether he could face this incredibly powerful girl. Where do you think you're going? He heard a voice behind him. She had been right in front of him just a moment ago, and he hadn't even seen her move, all while wearing an innocent smile. Kabeji-san. The pirates were horrified to see yet another one of their strongest members cornered. Boom! Another house was destroyed as Yamato sent him flying alongside his partner. How boring, they're all so weak. Yamato muttered, making everyone who heard it wonder where this monstrous girl had come from. Seeing that the fight was over and that the other pirates didn't seem willing to continue, Yamato turned her body toward where Luffy was battling Buggy. By this time, the sounds of the ship's cannons had already ceased. Most likely, their crew had reached the island and was closing in on this camp. And, Buggy was still making groaning sounds, his head reattaching to his broken body in the wreckage. Luffy let him do that calmly. He quickly shook himself, spat out some saliva, and looked indignantly at the man in the hat. You bastard, that was a low blow. Buggy shouted with a thin voice. They say clowns are funny, and I must admit, you do have a strong body to remain conscious after that attack, Luffy said with a calm smile, trying to provoke the man in front of him. Yamato, can you handle the rest of the crew? Luffy yelled to Yamato. While I deal with this big-nosed, ugly, and unstylish clown. Luffy smiled at Buggy, releasing smoke as he said all that once again. You bastard, I'll kill you. Buggy, if he had any fear due to the man's strength in front of him, his anger had blinded him to it. His hatred fueled his actions as he charged at the man, his waist separating into halves. With his leg split, it began spinning toward Luffy, just like in the anime, with a blade attached to the front of his boot. Bara bara, senbei. Luffy, seeing it coming his way, simply dodged it. Buggy's attacks kept coming, and Luffy easily evaded those spinning legs. Hi! Luffy noticed knives flying his way. He raised his hand, and a firebolt shot towards the knives. The metal disintegrated upon contact with the scorching substance. Purple flames? What kind of fruit is this? Buggy couldn't help but exclaim. But the clown wasn't intimidated by this power, as he had a sadistic grin on his face, and his arm had no hand on it. Luffy had already noticed that the missing hand was still on his back, holding a knife, but he patiently waited for Buggy to make his move. Die! Buggy screamed as his hand flew toward Luffy. Buggy, seeing that Luffy was not dodging, smiled sadistically. However, his grin faded as his daggers struck the man's skin, failing to penetrate despite passing through his pirate mantle. Is that all you've got? Luffy's voice broke the silence as he asked calmly. EHHH. Are you a monster? Buggy shouted in fear this time. A man like you shouldn't be surprised, considering everything you witnessed before starting your own crew, clown, Luffy taunted, noting Buggy's surprise. Don't tell me you know. Buggy was now nervous, as his past was a delicate matter for him. Buggy, you're a disappointment. Attacking and robbing civilians in the weakest sea? And to think you were once aboard that ship, Luffy spoke in a serious tone. Huh? Who are you? How do you know that? Buggy seemed even more nervous now. I've already told you who I am. My name is Monkey D. Luffy. The man who will conquer the seas. Do you see this hat? Luffy took it from his back. I made a promise to Shanks, and I intend to keep it. This statement made Buggy widen his eyes considerably. That's the same hat Shanks used. No wonder it looked so familiar. He exclaimed with his voice in a high-pitched tone. While Shanks is an emperor in the New World, you're here, abusing civilians. Luffy was genuinely disappointed in Buggy. The clown had become just another pirate, caught in the cycle. Without saying more, Luffy grabbed Buggy's hand that held the knife, which was still suspended on his back, and slapped it. Ouch! That hurts! Buggy couldn't help but cry out. Shaking his head in disappointment, Luffy advanced toward Buggy, who didn't even have time to react before taking a punch to the face, immediately knocking him out. All the pirates present were left stunned as their captain was sent flying into a city building once again. Boom! What? Captain Buggy was defeated. The chorus of voices erupted. Yamato, finish off the rest. Luffy ordered Yamato, who was still taking down the fleeing pirates with ease, moving faster. Yamato, now using all her speed, disappeared from the area and began moving among the remaining unconscious pirates, swiftly knocking them out. In a short time, the whole place was filled with pirates on the ground, unconscious and groaning in pain. Luffy, satisfied with that, turned his gaze to the cage where the girl named Nami was. The girl had a bewildered look, not fully comprehending what was happening. Yo! Luffy announced his presence as he walked over to her, pulling her out of her dazed state. Nami, still extremely surprised, looked at the tall man in front of her without knowing what to say. She had been expecting her death just moments ago, but now she was alive, facing these strange people who had appeared out of nowhere and defeated the pirates with such ease. Hi. Hello. She stammered in front of this relentless man. Third-person POV. Orange Town, East Blue. What's your name? This was the first thing Luffy asked as he greeted the girl in front of the cell. N.A. Nami, she replied with a hint of nervousness. Well, Nami, you're free now, Luffy said as he unlocked her cell and opened the door. Hey, why is everyone already defeated? A frustrated Zoro's voice echoed as he rushed in, ready for a fight, scanning for any standing enemies. Ha ha ha, sorry, it seems we were faster, Luffy said, freeing the girl with an embarrassed smile. Seconds later, the place was filled with the entire crew, appearing one after another. It looks like you took care of everyone without any problems, Kuina grumbled, observing about 30 unconscious bodies on the ground and some damaged buildings. So strong? Luffy-sama and Yamato-sama took care of all the bad guys. Shirahoshi asked in amazement. She hadn't witnessed their battle. A mermaid. Nami noticed Shirahoshi, who had flown in with the group. She recognized her as a mermaid because Shirahashi's tail was partially visible beneath her dress at the moment. Nami studied the princess for a moment before she noticed the other peculiar members of the group, such as Beppo, the bear dressed in beach attire, and Megalo, the shark that floated in mid-air, encased in a bubble of air, seemingly breathing oxygen just like any land-dwelling animal. Nami's full attention remained on the timid girl with a tail, as her previous experiences with fishmen had not been positive, and she had heard the stories about the mermaids that Arlong and others had told. Seeing a hint of anger in Nami's eyes as she glanced at Shirahoshi, Luffy decided to speak up. Yes, she's one of our crew members. We are the Straw Hat Pirates, Luffy confidently declared with a smile, expressing his pride. Nami, now outside the cell, couldn't help but give the peculiar group an odd look before Luffy's words sank in. She realized that, aside from the mermaid, there was a bear walking like a human and a shark floating in the air in a bubble of air. The shark seemed to be breathing oxygen just like a land-dwelling creature. When Luffy's declaration about being pirates finally registered, Nami's gaze turned icy, but the earlier confusion had left her too disoriented to process it properly. Wait, where do you think you're going? Luffy asked as he suddenly interjected with an amused smile, sensing Nami's desire to distance herself from the group. Nami stopped for a moment, expecting the pirates, including Luffy, to do something to her. With a mischievous smile, Luffy continued, while the others observed the interaction, curious about their captain's intentions. Don't worry, you can go, but you have to go in that direction. Everything related to the pirates is now ours, Luffy declared, well aware that Nami had been heading toward the pirate ship to steal their treasures. But the pirates have my things. Nami protested, raising her voice in alarm and dissatisfaction. As I said, the pirates' belongings are now ours. You're free to leave, and we'll take their things as our spoils of victory. That's how pirates operate, Luffy stated matter-of-factly. He didn't seem to care much about what Nami thought. He was convinced that, no matter how noble her cause might be in saving her village and its inhabitants, she would betray him in the end. Luffy thought the original Luffy had been too soft on her. Kuina and Lami raised their eyebrows at this, as they had heard Luffy mention earlier that Nami would be a member of their crew. However, before they could raise the issue, Nami spoke up. Wait. You are pirates, right? Nami suddenly found herself with only one option. Luffy looked at her indifferently, but there was a hidden gleam of amusement in his eyes. Yes, I just said that, Luffy said plainly. Why don't you let me join your crew? I'm a great navigator. Nami announced. This piqued everyone's interest. Some could see that Nami was more interested in the treasures, but they kept quiet, waiting for Luffy's response. A navigator, Luffy mused, rubbing his chin. I don't know. I think we actually need a housekeeper. If there were one around, maybe I'd take them under my flag and onto my ship, where we could conquer a lot of gold and money, Luffy muttered aloud. We clearly need a navigator, the entire crew thought simultaneously but refrained from speaking out, hoping to see what Luffy had in mind. A housekeeper. Nami's face contorted with anger. Anyway, everyone, let's gather all their treasures, Luffy ordered as he redirected his attention to his crew, seemingly dismissing Ami, Lami and Beppo, collect all the treasure from the ship. I heard they have a map of the Grand Line, Luffy instructed, and they headed to Buggy's ship, which was parked at the port and hadn't been damaged by cannon fire. I'm a great housekeeper. Nami quickly shouted when she heard this, rushing toward Luffy. Great, we have a new crew member. Luffy announced, his voice dripping with irony. But nobody said anything, patiently waiting for their captain to reveal his plan for the girl who obviously had her eye on their treasure. Show more enthusiasm. Nami scolded him, noting the sarcasm in his voice. We have a housekeeper. Beppo was the only one who spoke, earning an angry glare from Nami. Sorry, the bear quickly replied, cowering under her disapproving gaze. Why are you apologizing so easily? Nami was bewildered, shouting as she wondered why this talking bear was so quick to apologize just from her glare. Kuina sighed, wondering whether Nami was really seeing anyone as normal in this group. Luffy had now recruited this woman as a housekeeper, but it was clear he was teasing her while she clearly had her sights set on stealing their treasure. Nami couldn't decide who was worse among them. Luffy received no system notification, realizing that Nami hadn't genuinely joined the crew but had merely spoken in the heat of the moment. That's good. It means that everyone who has joined the crew has genuinely put their faith in our flag. Will you eventually put your faith in me and our crew, Nami? Luffy pondered internally, even as he looked at the girl in front of him. Now, while Lami and Beppo are getting the treasure, Yamato, Zoro, Kuina, and Nami, you should tie up all the pirates, including Buggy. Zoro, he's a devil fruit user, so I want you to lock him inside a reinforced barrel, as simply tying him up won't help much, Luffy said. Luffy could have purchased Sea Prism stone handcuffs in the system's store, but they were expensive, and he wanted to save money. Yes, Captain, Zoro replied, and everyone nodded in agreement. Well, almost everyone. Wait. Let me help collect the treasure. Nami exclaimed, earning dubious looks from all of them who were aware that her real intention was to steal the treasure. Luffy smiled at the woman, who was nicknamed Cat Burglar in the original series. No, you're the housekeeper now. I'll leave the treasure to the ship's doctor and the crew's assistant, Luffy said calmly. Wait, Nami was about to speak, but Luffy ignored her and continued. Shirahoshi, come with me. Let's visit the town so you can see how humans live on the surface. Luffy declared as he walked ahead. Yes, Luffy-sama, the excited mermaid followed her captain, eager to visit a human town for the first time. Megalo followed closely behind. Chapter 19, Orange Town 4. Chapter size, 1285 words. Third-person POV. Orange Town, East Blue. While the crew was organizing everything at the port related to the captured pirates, Luffy, Shirahoshi, and Megalo were walking through the empty town at the moment. So this is how a human town works? It's different, but it reminds me a lot of the houses on Fishman Island. The 1.70-meter tall mermaid spoke, admiring the surroundings. I don't see much difference between humans and fishmen, to be honest. Apart from the respiratory system for breathing underwater, you seem to have the same physiological conditions as humans, Luffy said as he walked with the princess. Although I have no idea how mermaids reproduce, Luffy couldn't help but murmur as he curiously examined her tail. Sharky sharky! Megalo exclaimed while munching on some plants in a house's garden. That's not seaweed, Megalo. It's better to wait and eat it when we get back and have a big feast, Luffy warned him, as Megalo didn't seem to like the plants he had tried and promptly spat them out. Shishishishishi, Shirahoshi laughed alongside, amused by her finned friend's antics. Why is the town so empty? Did the bad men drive away the other humans? She innocently asked. Yes, unfortunately, that's how things work everywhere in the world. The strong prey on the weak, Luffy spoke calmly. What's that up ahead, Luffy-sama? Shirahoshi said, looking a few dozen meters ahead, where there was a destroyed house. In front of it lay an injured dog with blood matted in its fur, lying on the ground amid the wreckage. Did this happen before I got here? Luffy commented to himself, a bit surprised, as he knew that in the original story, Moji's giant lion, Richie, destroyed the pet shop, and Chaochu fought back bravely. However, it seemed that this event occurred while he was on his way to the marine ship. It appears that with my presence in this world as the new Luffy, many things are changing, including characters with different genders and ages, as well as some events unfolding differently. It seems I can't rely on my previous knowledge anymore, or trust it too firmly, Luffy mumbled internally. What's wrong, Luffy-sama? Shirahoshi couldn't help but ask when she heard Luffy speak softly. Nothing, princess. Let's go, that animal needs help if it's still alive, Luffy said as he hurried forward. Yes, Luffy-sama. The mermaid followed him closely. Upon reaching the scene, the first thing Luffy did was remove some debris from on top of the dog. Shirahoshi stood in shock, her hand over her mouth, seeing the animal in such a wretched state. Well, he's still alive, but he needs treatment quickly, Luffy said, speaking to no one in particular. He opened the system store and retrieved some healing fluids to prevent infection of the wounds at this moment. Luffy had no medical expertise, but he figured it was the basic step before having Lami, who would take care of fully healing the dog. Who are you, and what? What is that woman with a tail? A new voice appeared nearby, a shocked elderly man who had observed Luffy tending to Chaochu and had dropped a bottle near the injured animal. But he was even more astonished by the beauty of Shirahoshi, who had a pink tail instead of legs. He had no idea what a mermaid was in this world. Who are you, old man? Luffy asked, looking at the elderly man seriously. While he might know who this man was, Luffy knew he couldn't trust his canonical knowledge too much. The elderly man before him matched the anime's description, but he looked quite wretched now, injured, with a broken arm, and hanging onto a spear he was using as a makeshift crutch. This indicated that he had a tough fight before Luffy and the others arrived. I'm the mayor. I was fighting against Moji and his lion with this dog at my side, but we lost miserably. I woke up recently from the sound of a loud explosion. Are you responsible for that? What happened to Buggy the pirate? The mayor asked. That's terrible. Shirahoshi couldn't help but comment with a sad expression before Luffy spoke. We defeated them and intend to claim the bounty on their heads, Luffy said. So, you're bounty hunters? The mayor asked, somewhat relieved. No, we're pirates, Luffy said simply as he picked up Chaochu. What will you do with Chaochu? The mayor couldn't help but ask. Luffy turned to him and said, I'm going to recruit him into my crew, of course. Luffy smiled confidently after those words. What? Luffy-sama. Sharky. Quiet down, Megalo, you're not much different. Luffy couldn't help but grumble in response to the shark, who was breathing outside the water. A shark that can fly and breathe oxygen. The man had huge eyes, much like Shirahoshi, after hearing about Megalo. This old man is quite clueless. Luffy exclaimed internally. What's the use of those glasses, old man, if you can't even see a shark flying next to us since the moment you saw us, Luffy mumbled. You say that as if it's normal, the mayor exclaimed indignantly. In any case, Luffy returned from his stroll with the mermaid to the pirate camp that Buggy's crew had set up, half of which had been destroyed. At the same time, an old man followed Luffy, wanting answers about why he was taking his friend's dog. Old man, I'm not going to force him, but I'm confident he'll come with us, Luffy said simply before meeting the others. You finally came back, Kuina said, watching him arrive with the others. I see you finished everything here, Luffy commented, surveying the area. There were tied-up bandits in one corner, still unconscious, a giant lion with the man who tamed it, and the swordsman from Buggy's crew in another. Meanwhile, a chest was constantly bouncing beside Zoro. Release me! You have felt the wrath of Buggy. They could hear the muffled voice of the clown inside the object. Ha 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 ha! Good job, Luffy praised them with a small laugh. There were quite a few treasures on their ships as well, Lamy said, raising 2 bags filled with them, while a woman with orange hair stared at the bags with dollar signs in her eyes and drool dripping from her mouth. Good job. Thank you, Captain. I'm sorry. Ignoring the bear's apology, Luffy brought Chaochu to Lamy. Can you take care of him? Lamy looked at the dog's condition and nodded. Of course. Leaving Chaochu with Lamy, Luffy walked over to the treasures. A girl was still gazing greedily at the bags, her eyes shimmering with the thought of all the money. Zoro looked at her with disbelief, wondering if she had any idea what she was doing in front of everyone. Before the girl could react, Luffy moved next to her and touched the bags, the treasures vanished instantly. You've added 10 million berries to the system store. What? Where's the treasure? What did you do to them? Nami cried out in shock, as if someone had taken a child from its mother right in front of her. The treasure has been stored in the crew's funds, he simply said. The others who witnessed it simply thought that Luffy had shrunk the valuable items, as he hadn't explained the system yet. Sighing and ignoring a very desperate Nami by his side, questioning what he had done, Luffy turned to the rest of his crew, who were now paying attention to their captain. Third-person POV. Orange Town, East Blue. Is he going to be alright? The mayor asked as he inspected the dog being bandaged by Lamy's side. Yes, old man, you've asked that 12 times already. Worry about yourself and don't bother me anymore. Lamy was irritated with the old man, who was now wearing a cast on his broken arm but still concerned about the dog that the captain had asked her to take care of. After that, seeing that her job was done here, she turned to her captain. Now we need to go over our next steps, Luffy announced, so she stepped back to see what Luffy had planned for them. Arriving at a quieter spot, away from the screams coming from Buggy in the barrel, the crew formed a circle to listen to Luffy speak in the middle of it. First, we took some treasures from these pirates, but it's not enough, he said calmly. That's why I also want the bounty on their heads. As soon as he said these words, everyone looked confused. But we're pirates. I doubt the Marines would give us money, even if we turn in a pirate with a price on their head, Zoro said curiously. You're right, Zoro, I wouldn't be surprised if there's already a bounty on my head after I killed a Marine commander, took over a Marine base, and stole one of their ships, Luffy said calmly. But apart from Zoro and me, they have no knowledge of you guys, as hardly anyone here has been seen by the Marines as part of our pirate crew. Luffy reasoned and continued. In that sense, I'm going to have Lamy and Bappo set up near a Marine base to turn in these men. They'll be known as bounty hunters, exchanging the heads of the pirates we capture on our journey until we leave the sea. Lamy understood Luffy's reasoning and nodded. Before she could ask about their next meeting point, Luffy continued, noticing her evident confusion. Don't worry about that, Yamato here will make Vivre cards for us, so we can find each other anytime using them, Luffy said, raising some eyebrows while most of them didn't understand what he was talking about. This? Great idea, my Luffy. Yamato said with a smile, as she could create Vivre cards. Vivre cards? Kuina asked, looking puzzled, as she wasn't aware of their existence. Also known as life cards, made from a part of someone's body, typically their fingernails, they move toward the person they represent no matter where you are in the world. They also represent the user's life, and if it starts to burn, it means the original person is nearing death. If the paper disappears in flames, it means the person has died, Lamy explained calmly, earning many surprised looks. Kuina, Zoro, Nami, and even Shirahoshi had no knowledge of this. So I'm going to turn in Buggy's crew for their bounty and then we'll meet again with the paper, right? Lamy asked. Exactly, that way you'll become our unofficial bounty hunter, Luffy said with a smile, and Nami could be seen with dollar signs replacing her eyes at this idea. After planning how they would do this, Luffy turned his attention to Chaochu, who had awakened as they discussed their plans. Nami was the only one who stayed quiet in the group. Yo, Chaochu! Luffy greeted the bandaged dog beside the mayor after separating from his group, and the elderly man hadn't left the dog's side all this time. Oh! The white-furred dog, one of their saviors, barked. Luffy-sama, do you really plan to recruit the dog? Shirahoshi asked from the side with a happy look, as the dog had survived. What? He intends to recruit a dog. Lami exclaimed comically when she heard this. EHHH. Both Kuina, Zoro, Bappo, and Nami exclaimed in unison. Ha 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 ha. He seems to be quite strong. Yamato commented enthusiastically. Look at him, he's just an ordinary injured dog. Nami made a comical face as she shouted in disbelief at both the captain and the vice-captain of the group. Oh. 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 Chaochu didn't seem too happy about what was being said about him. Hey, buddy, calm down, let's talk, okay? Luffy said calmly as he heard everything the dog was saying. Wait, can you talk to him? Zoro couldn't help but ask with a raised eyebrow. I don't know why, but yes, I can. I can't understand Megalo, but I can hear what Chaochu is trying to say, Luffy said, scratching his head in this dilemma. Without the voice of all things, which is still locked, I can say that maybe it's due to my mythical Zoan form, as in its final form, despite having the body of a human with horns and wings. I also have a face that resembles a pitbull. This is amazing, Luffy-sama. I can't understand him very well, unlike Megalo. Sharky. Megalo says he can understand Chaochu-sama too, Shirahoshi said again. I see. Anyway, I'm going to talk to him. Luffy went to the injured dog and began to speak with him quietly in that corner. To the onlookers, it appeared that Luffy was talking to the dog as if it were a person, and the dog was responding with barks. Whisper. Oh, oh. Whisper. Oh. Whisper. Oh. Oh. That's great. Luffy exclaimed happily after some time. While almost everyone was stunned by what was happening, the mayor standing nearby was conflicted. What's going on here? Zoro exclaimed, looking lost. Ha 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 ha, we have a new crewmate right now. Luffy celebrated in front of everyone as he stood up. With the exception of Yamato, who had enhanced hearing and observation haki, the conversation was a mystery to all the others. Don't look at me like that, I just told him to join us. I'd help him get stronger, he lost the only precious thing to him, the store of his former owner, so he felt quite helpless. I offered my help to make him stronger so he never has to feel like that again, and to have the adventures he can have on our ship. Luffy spoke with a smile. I understand, and what about him having a harem of female dogs? Yamato asked, confused in front of everyone. Don't mention that. Luffy shouted with a bit of embarrassment when she brought that up. Oh. Don't agree with her. Everyone looking at this scenario face-palmed. This captain is really crazy. Offering a harem to a dog so that he can join the crew. They all exclaimed in their minds. I didn't exactly offer that directly, I just said he could get power, fame, and some female dogs in adventures on my ship. Luffy lamented internally. Anyway, let's get ready to set sail, we have more islands to visit. Luffy ordered, and a part of the crew started dragging the prisoners onto the marine ship. Meanwhile, Luffy went to Buggy's ship and shrank it to fit in his pocket. Would Kaya buy this ship? Luffy wondered as he stored the ship in his pocket. Once everything was ready, they began to head back to the marine ship with all the loot and prisoners. As they boarded the marine ship, they heard a voice from the direction of the island. Hey! You better take good care of Chaochu, or I'll come after you at sea, the mayor shouted from the port as they started to set sail. Don't worry, old man, the next news you'll hear about this dog will be his wanted poster. Luffy replied, placing his hat on his head. As if a dog would get a wanted poster, the mayor shouted comically. Goodbye, mayor. See you next time. Luffy smiled at the only old man on the dock. Oh. Oh. Chaochu was next to him, not forgetting to say goodbye. Now, what's the plan? Lami asked. Let's head toward the island of Syrup Village. I don't know the exact direction because the marine map is confusing, but I have a way to get to the location. Doesn't anyone here know how to navigate? Nami muttered unconsciously. Wait a moment. You don't have a navigator on the ship? Nami asked out loud in surprise, wanting to apply for the position since she was just a maid here, and while trying to steal from them, a better position would present a better opportunity. Luffy had a playful gleam in his eyes when he heard this. Why would I need a navigator when I have Zoro? Luffy teased Nami while pointing at Zoro. Zoro. Me. Zoro was also confused. Of course, pay attention. Zoro, where is Syrup Village? Do you know? Luffy asked Zoro directly. I believe it's that way, Captain. Zoro thought for a moment, scratching his chin, and finally pointed in a direction. You see? Bappo, go to the helmsman and turn the ship in the opposite direction of where Zoro pointed. Ha 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 ha. Hee. Shi. Shar. Sit zai. I'm sorry. Hey. This isn't funny. Zoro turned red as everyone was laughing at him.